Kissing Santa Claus. Clean Billionaire Christmas. 2-hour short reads romance. Written by Anne Malley. Narrated by Nikki Franklin. Chapter 1. New York City, 3 days ago. 10 days to Christmas. I just heard. Blair LaRue, the best personal assistant on the planet, scooted inside Victoria, Torrey, Barclay's corner office. It was the office, featuring a magnificent view of sidewinding snow coating the whole of Manhattan as far as the eye could see. Torrey's eyes, big, blue, and stinging with tears where she sat at her beloved desk, would be staring down a pink slip soon enough. All thanks to the last-minute invite summoning her to a swanky holiday house party where spouses were mandatory. Or so the invitation read. The husband Torrey said she had, but conveniently forgot to marry, would not be in attendance. The predicament was her fault entirely, since she kissed off the Santa Claus who had proposed to her. So my lump of coal has finally arrived, said Torrey, lifting the cream-colored invite. Bring it on. Torrey gaped. What? Coal is a diamond in your hands. The bigger the better. Blair shut the door with a quirk of flawless red lip. The woman who single-handedly dragged Yates Aldrich into the light, pried off revenue-sucking barnacles, and expanded our aftermarket market share a whole 34 points, can move Everest. Mount Everest. 33 3/4 points, said Torrey. She preferred precision and keeping her mind off mountains. Yates Aldrich, LLC's Senior Director of Acquisitions, preferred gainful employment, massive gains, and that's why Torrey lied to her moralizing boss about getting married. Admitting the whole of her human weakness in the aftermath of a corporate incentive trip to Finland's Santa Claus village would have gotten her fired. Responsible women simply did not have babies out of wedlock, said every man who could hit and run. But responsible career women with a mind to climb did not marry itinerant Santas either. Father Christmas proposed marriage even before the inevitable had happened. A single night of Torrey forgetting who she was and what she intended to accomplish in life. Unassailable. Unquestioned respectability. She wanted the kind of stability that only a mountain of money could buy. It was more than a single mother and a broken home that pushed Torrey to it. Logic had begged the question. If not Torrey, reaching the pinnacle of Manhattan royalty, then who? Scaling anything required sacrifice, grit, and the desire to conquer. Torrey had them all. Blonde, built, and blessed with instincts that may have derailed her. Torrey chose self-mastery. Something she could use right now. She massaged her aching neck and swallowed. If she could maintain a size 4 figure, she could surely choose those steps that would lead to the top of her chosen career. Torrey should have chosen more wisely, however. Old Stanley Aldrich, wheelchair-bound and formed by the greatest generation, had a point. A sharp one that scraped Torrey's bone with an inconvenient truth. Responsible people took charge. They owned their choices, mistakes, and never made excuses. Not even for big, fat frauds like the one Torrey perpetrated for the greater good. Torrey's greatest good was Molly. Molly Dolly. Cream-cheeked, freckle-dusted, and inspiring her mommy to infinity and beyond, from inside a silver frame on the desk. Toy Story was Molly's favorite. The delusional spaceman in the classic film. A child's plaything according to the reality-checking cowboy with Tom Hanks's voice. Seemed to be Torrey. Convinced she was something she wasn't, she'd flown too high. Others would suffer thanks to her. Stanley Aldrich sprang this party on Torrey only after she floated the story that mother and daughter would be spending the holidays with her elusive husband. I'm sorry, Blair. I'm sorry, period. I know, and it's all right. Blair moved toward the wet bar. Do you mind? Go for it, Torrey said. Still on the clock, the formerly secure executive threw her fishbone braid over her shoulder. She ignored the insidious invitation and focused on the work. The rainbow-colored bars displayed on her concave jumbo screen evaporated into the following slide with a single tap of her mouse. A spreadsheet of numbers, forcing her to squint, came next. Tori's next steps could make or break Molly's future. Yates Aldrich was not the only firm in town that brought up floundering family businesses, teased them apart, then sold off parts for profit. Far from it. But Tori's reputation, the same she'd gambled, was critical. Wall Street would be put off by Tori's lying. The diamond band she bought herself protected her during many a negotiation. Tori was happily married, which would preclude the solution of a quickie divorce streaking through her brain. The streak of guilt niggling Tori's conscience at targeting generational business for buyout in the run-up to Christmas was another no-go. Toy Story's twisted Sid Phillips, reshaping innocent victims as if they were only toys, was a bad visual. Yet here she was, having to own what she'd become. "Merry Christmas," Tori sighed while Blair lit up like a mischievous elf. "If we scramble, it will be," her assistant answered. "Right." Tori would have to scramble to fill the suits Blair insisted must hang in the designated his closet at Tori's midtown condo. The best plays required props, and Blair, having suggested a special hire in the past, was determined if nothing else. But a man? A flesh and blood Edvin Finn? The first name of Tori's fake husband was real enough, if she had married Molly's dad. Finn was a fill-in that Tori invented, a reminder to avoid Nordic flings. Any fling, anywhere. She did not know what Edvin's last name was. Tori had never asked, and that was the excuse she'd given herself for not searching for Molly's dad. Another shining moment that wasn't. She sent another email, short with no frills to confirm the proposed buyout filling her computer screen. Typical. Blair's "let me handle it" humming was typical too. Have a holly jolly husband took the place of holly jolly Christmas lyrics in Tori's tortured mind. Adrenaline shakes never felt so well deserved. Hire a husband? Should she? Tori touched a middle finger between her eyebrows and pressed hard. So? Blair tumbled ice cubes into a glass. "I can make this happen if you give me the go." "I take it you've been scouting talent all this time?" Blair broke out the booze. "Who is Manhattan's best PA?" "An actor would equal exposure," said Tori. "Questions. Conversation not under her control, and the possibility of blackmail." Her spine tingled, and not with joy. "You're already exposed," said Blair. Sorry. Edvin is in Borneo, climbing Mount Kinabalu, or a straight-up confession. Those are my choices. It is what it is. This is a full partnership. Your ticket to destination unassailable. Top of the heap, said Blair. At least she refrained from using the M word as she snatched a lime from the mini-fridge and squeezed with shocking force. What you've sacrificed for, and I've effectively built my own glass ceiling, said Tori. Poetic justice? So you're going to let the grandson Jeremy grab your prize? The house party is your golden chance. Prove your dedication to Yates Aldrich. I've traded my life and love for this company. My choice. But the partnership isn't my prize. Tori needed to get real. Do not say that. Don't say what? A top-heavy redhead let her sugar-coated self into the office. Knock, knock. The woman's loosely stacked updo was not the first thing one noticed, but the neon smile above a deep V-neck sweater dress, at least 2 sizes too small, and ankle-breaking heels were intentional window dressing. All working women recognized the type. I knew you'd be here. The new arrival fingered her collarbone where a glittery bauble caught the light. Tori the working horse, forever on the job, despite having a little darling at home and a husband who never is. How do you manage? Focus. What do you need? Tori asked, names failing. Something mission critical, I'm sure, Blair said. Tori slipped on chunky framed glasses she didn't need. Props did help. Blair explained, Astrid is our new accounting queen. She's digging into every pie to ensure everyone gets an equal slice. Some more equal than others, Tori guessed. A pleasure to meet you, Astrid. Thank you. Astrid smiled wide. Blair wasn't at her station, so in for a penny, I popped in. Accuracy is mission critical, and clerical errors are worse than sneak thieves. Astrid's mask slipped. A blip that ended in a bigger grin before she strolled past Blair and handed Tori an iPad. Tori took the device. Did you authorize this, Miss Barkley? There in the third column, a tapered index finger with crisp French manicure led the way on the flat surface. Blair's end-of-year bonus? Tori kept her expression neutral. Yes. Astrid licked her teeth. And the figure? What about it? Tori rewarded excellence. Nothing. You're busy. The accountant cast Blair a split-second once-over. You've answered my question, though, so it's all good. I'm sorry I intruded. It's all right. Tori should appreciate the attention to detail. The turnaround in Astrid's attitude intrigued Tori, even if Blair looked like she'd swallowed soap. Thanks, said the accountant with a titter. Tori ignored the giggle that made her PA cringe between sips. Just because Tori wanted men to leave her alone didn't mean everyone did. Any time, said Tori. Is there something else? Not really, no. Although if I'm being honest, Astrid fluttered heavy lashes, I'm dying to meet your mountain man, Mr. Finn. She corrected while Tori took a stab at looking flattered. Meanwhile, her stomach flipped, and Astrid went on. Jeremy said something about your husband making time this Christmas. Jeremy? This Astrid moved fast. Jeremy Aldrich, the senior Aldrich's sole heir, had only resurfaced from antics abroad. Not exactly the working horse, at least where work was concerned. Tori recalled saying something about her husband when Jeremy hit on her. Cute enough, but come on, talk about never home. The redhead crinkled her button nose. You must be thrilled. And little Holly. Tori said, Molly. Oh yes, Molly. Tittering became nails on a chalkboard. Molly Barkley. Yes, well. Tori began while Blair bunched danger brows. Yes, well is right. Astrid chirped. She snatched up the second photo Tori kept on her desk. It was the only picture Tori had of Edvin. Massively muscled, heavily bearded, capped with a furred red velvet Santa hat, and hugging Tori like King Kong beneath a sprig of mistletoe. The stories he must have. Triumph gleamed in Astrid's shifting eyes as if she'd climbed Everest. Focus fixed on Tori. His allowing Molly to take your last name. I understand the need for continuity for you. Women have right to the name and reputation they've built. But a man's child bearing her mother's last name? Well, your Edvin must be very accommodating. We both are. Tori thrust the iPad in Astrid's direction. Thank you for your attention to detail. Blair and I are working, yes. Astrid took the electronic device and returned Tori's picture to the desk. Don't stay too late. See? Exposed. Blair whispered the words after she checked the hallway to ensure she and Tori were alone. You need a body for the weekend. That red-headed thing must be stopped. Yates Aldrich will get sold off for parts if Astrid giggles her way into Jeremy Aldrich's... You know. I do know. Hire whoever you have in mind, said Tori. But I'm surprised at you. Surprised at me? The big bucks come with certain duties, Blair. Like keeping me on track to make the right decisions. Tough ones. Or shall I tell Astrid to knock a 0 off your bonus? Tori used a sober tone that fooled nobody as she clicked off her screen. but teasing Blair might counter the pasty taste filling her mouth at the thought of what she would do, what she had to do. I need a husband. Bravo. Bravo and about time, but honestly, I need a husband long term, till death do us part or until such time as assets are equitably divided. Assets? Tori stood, smoothed blonde bangs into place, and paced inside practical flats while Blair lowered her raised glass. The swallow soap look returned to the PA's pretty face. She downed her drink and returned to the bar. Whoever you hire, said Tori. He'd better be boorish, bearded, and decidedly drunk. The most toxic alpha male that even conservative, traditional-minded women would protest in the streets. A man to make Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Satan combined seem like a sheepish preteen. Tori's construct was the complete opposite of the adorable hermit who'd offered to share his hidey hole with the burned-out career woman. But Tori wasn't burned out. She was finally seeing reason and behaving like a true career climber, one who would secure Molly the castle she deserved and ensure the kingdom of Yates Aldrich LLC reigned supreme. What are you saying, boss? Jeremy Aldrich. I'm going to marry him. Aldrich Estate, upstate New York, last night. Edvin Arne Alexson scratched his beard and gave an honest assessment. She is incredible. Yes, and you won't walk away from her. No way. Stan Aldrich said of his prized mare. Or maybe he was speaking of the baby girl that Edvin hoped and feared was his. The child's mother, Victoria, was another matter. But Stan radiated surety. The commanding boardroom variety, Edvin decided, despite the double-wide wheelchair and Stan's withered legs blanketed against the cold permeating the stable. Not that Edvin had ever seen his confidant in a boardroom setting, cementing mergers, facilitating sell-offs, and creating industry titans even after the death of his partner, Montgomery Yates. Yates was the family friend Edvin still missed and always would, for he did have a heart. Still, a frozen way station with survival rations and zero company was Edvin's preferred venue, when he wasn't exploring his world his way. Santa Claus Village had been a one-off means to touch base with Stan, while maintaining the anonymity Edvin cherished. Yet here he stood, after an exhausting flight, stroking the nose of a curious mare. And there sat Stan, steeped in concern, somber yet confident that right would prevail. Stan wanted Edvin to buy out Yates Aldrich. He'd contacted Edvin to propose the deal, to tempt Edvin with prized mares and a reminder of what it meant to live large, and what Molly, raised in the city, might benefit from. Molly. Edwin pondered the name and the prospects of being a father. I still can't believe it, Edvin admitted. The Finn sucked air into his lungs. Victoria is a mother. Has been a mother. All this time. I was sure that Molly was your child. That you and Tori had an understanding, said Stan. Otherwise I would have said something. Edvin ground his teeth. You had no reason to doubt it. I'm glad you don't doubt me. My only goal has been to grant you the privacy and space Monte insisted you needed. Yes, and Victoria's tale of a quickie wedding fit perfectly with my billionaire eccentricities. We all have idiosyncrasies, so don't blame yourself. At least not too much. Good advice. It's a management technique I've developed to cover my own shortfall. You forget I have a winner grandson, Stan groaned. But your situation is why I never questioned little Molly bearing Victoria's last name, or pressed her to produce this phantom spouse she says she has. The mare peeked over the stall. She is magnificent, said Edvin. Golden and gleaming, saddles, harnesses, and endless other horsey things in the adjoining tack room gleamed too. Immaculate and top quality. Country squire wasn't Edvin's thing, but if he was going to adopt the persona of the sophisticated gentleman, Even for one weekend to discover what he could about Victoria and her child, he'd best get accustomed and shave the beard Victoria had to remember. He may or may not buy out Yates Aldrich, lock, stock, and Stan's country estate. Proximity to Victoria did not appeal to Edvin. Sole custody was highly likely, considering the money Edvin could throw at the case. Money. He laughed, and Stan cleared his throat. "It'll work out," the old man said. "For you, yes. But I've only arrived in New York, and already I'm contemplating tearing Molly from her mother. Some civilization." "Whatever you decide," said Stan, "I understand. I'll try, but Tori is a devoted mother." The mare's lush brown eyes sought Edvin out beneath dense lashes. The color differed from Victoria's crystal blue, but the intensity was the same. The need to run hid in the depths of the horse's eyes, just as it had in Victoria's. Flaring nostrils and a click of hooves seemed to confirm Edvin's opinion. All the horse required was a track with challengers. Some people were like that too. But Winter's purse appreciated appreciation. Little things like the waft of sweet treats in Edvin's pocket. This mare would accept those gifts he wanted to give, whether it won or lost on the track. Simple things. Edvin sensed simplicity in Victoria Barclay. Her vulnerability at Santa Claus Village had prompted Edvin to believe she differed from the type of woman he ran from. Climbers. Her honest response to simple kindness, warmth from a man who appeared to have only warmth to give, moved him. Long before the winter moon rose, he would propose marriage again if Victoria turned out to be that loving soul who captured his heart. But that was foolish. Wishful thinking had to go. Victoria had put on a show in Finland. But to what purpose? Fun? Money? Edvin must find out. She had not sued him for paternity yet, but invented a husband with his name. If Victoria knew who Edvin really was and wanted to lay claim to his cash through Molly, she was behaving strangely. "Nothing makes sense," he told the horse as Stan powered his wheelchair across the stable to answer a buzzing iPhone. Whatever Victoria's motives, she lacked the courage to explain herself. His heart lurched in recollection of the empty bed that met him when he returned from arranging the private ceremony that could have changed both their lives. All three of their lives, provided Molly was his child. She was, he decided, recalling tender moments with Victoria burned into memory. The alternative that would require Victoria giving herself to another at nearly the same time, just for fun, was unthinkable. Impossible. His mind refused to go that far, and the whole of him shuddered in affirmation. Molly was his baby. His ego, the same he'd convinced himself he didn't have, needed her to be his. But what a father he would be. He dug a gloved hand into his pocket to retrieve the apple he'd lifted from the kitchen with 3 ranges and too many cooks. Winter's purse reacted with a nosebutt, and Edvin braced his hand against eager nips and snuffling sounds. "So is Victoria producing this husband she says she has?" Edvin heard enough of the conversation to guess who Stan was discussing. Molly's father? That's what her PA says. Edvin swallowed. Lies. I don't believe she's bringing anyone. It seems unlikely Victoria met another Edvin, Finn or otherwise. "So neither do I," said Stan, while Edvin reached for another apple. "And whoever she brings would have to look exactly like you. Like me?" Tori keeps a photo of her and her husband hugging beneath the mistletoe at Santa Claus Village. It's you. A puff of steam accompanied Stanley's heavy breath as he returned to Edvin's side. But her PA, Blair, assures me. Her accomplice, you mean? The terms were interchangeable. Edvin had his facilitators during his quiet time. Montgomery Yates was one. A stand-in dad while his father chased money, skirts, and other men's legacies. Edvin's mother busied herself spending the plunder while her son was left with an endless round of nannies, similarly motivated by financial compensation. His parents were gone now, not absent like Victoria was for Molly. Edvin shook his head and wished again for the woman he remembered. Victoria couldn't be that unfeeling, that determined to keep her only child from the natural satisfaction that a mother and father provided. Parents who were there. She likes you, Stan said of Winter's Purse. I want Molly to like me. Molly may not be yours, Edvin. She looks like your mother. A hint of you if you want my opinion, especially in the eyes. But until you can prove it. Stan let his words hang at the appearance of a uniformed attendant hauling in a fresh bale of hay. Edvin welcomed the blast of sleet and snow, turning toward the mare. I'm taking the buyout, Stan, to include Victoria's contract. To include Winter's Purse? Asked Stan. Yes, as if you didn't know. Molly gets her first pwn from Isa. That's Daddy in Finnish. Something Edvin was determined his daughter would know meant more than never being there. Be careful, Stan cautioned. Give this Edvin Finn a pass for the weekend. Observe whoever Tori brings to fill your shoes and see what happens. Molly's mother is very shrewd and often stubborn. That makes two of us. Just so. Stan pulled his blanket up. But while you're busy holding your line, Tori could transform into an expensive drag and take whatever plans you have for Yates Aldrich and yourself down with her. Perceptions are everything, and personal vendettas have no place in private equity firms unless you want to lose money. I can afford it, unlike Stanley Aldrich. You can, but think of young Molly. I absolutely am. Edvin stroked the mare's head, wishing he'd brought another apple. Now I want to talk with his PA tonight. Now, if possible. The only Edvin Finn showing up tomorrow will be me, and we'll see up close what this loving mother does, or if she even remembers the man she crushed. Chapter 2. Aldrich Estate, upstate New York. Party time. Tori batted mascara-coated lashes at Jeremy Aldrich, decked out in formal wear. He grinned her way from inside a circle of chatty upper management, similarly dressed in tucks and tails, or evening gowns. All were eager to fetch whatever Jeremy wanted. Stan endured similar attention where he sat at the head table. The push was on for a new partner, and Tori was at the gate. A vision of Molly with her new magnetiles giving Tori an edge to run and run hard against all competition. But she couldn't move until certain events occurred. So where was her husband? Where was Blair? Suppressing panic, Tori searched across her assigned table beneath a marquee tent better suited to a spring wedding. Snow hammered the taut canvas where it staked out a Christmas wonderland. Poles wrapped with holly and ivy, swags of twinkling lights lending a magical glow to grinning company, on the Aldrich's east lawn. The manor, that's what it was, spread out in balconied glory on a compound boasting 100+ acres of private forests, pasture land, a lake for summer sports, and a helipad. An amazing stable that she would tour at precisely... Tori checked her Cartier wristwatch. 7 a.m. The following morning lay masked behind the massive 3 stories. Looking for me? Blair appeared, a little out of breath, but turned out beautifully in a sleek French roll with baby's breath sprigs and a little red dress. Thank you, space heaters. The interior of the tent had to be at least 75 degrees. Or maybe that was just her, Tori thought, sweating again, considering her spouse's delayed appearance. A few minutes was one thing, but 92? Where is he? Tori asked. She yanked up her emerald green sequin bodice, strapless but ribbed for heart-stopping support, while Blair inadvertently blocked Jeremy's view. Tori had green on the brain, the color of her husband's eyes, but not for long. Provided Blair moved, Tori tipped her head to effect the desired change, and Jeremy tuned heavy-lidded peepers on Tori. Whatever color they were was immaterial to Tori's plan. She was going to marry for the money, and thus green struck again. "Is Muscles climbing a rock?" Tori asked, delivering a Santagram. "He'll be here." "Okay, relax. You look fantastic, by the way, and you're absolutely right." Tori put too much pressure on her assistant, and they were both feeling it. Blair's red lips trembled. "I'm hoping for the best." "Me too," said Tori. "Seriously late is probably Muscles' prelude to the horrible husband act. Men sure kept my mom waiting, married or unmarried, sober or drunker than a tequila worm." A scene is what Tori needed, and right now. Jeremy rubbed his neck. His gaze still roamed past tuxes and designer gowns to linger on Tori's overloaded balcony. Tori never had such cleavage, or such a predatory streak. Colleagues commented, including Astrid. "The elusive Edvin Finn had better show," she said, passing in Slinky Dior. "With our workhorse tricked out like a sequined snake, she might try to squeeze someone. It's been a while between feedings." It had been a long time since Tori had known a man's affection. Any man. Edvin was the only truly honorable male Tori had ever been with. Long-term, short-term. Yes, they created a baby out of wedlock, but Edvin had asked her to marry him first. Why Tori was reviewing sweet details when none of them mattered was the question. Conscience plagued her, even before Blair's late-night call. The pep talk Tori expected turned toward the dangers of a loveless marriage. Arrangements for Tori's fake mate could be called off. "You okay?" Blair came close to whisper. "Want me to hire someone to throttle Astrid's pencil neck?" "I'm guessing many men and women may volunteer." Blair said no doubt, with a shifting expression. "But I could change the script once your guy gets here." "What is up with you? I can handle a bean counter who, by rights, has no business being here. And Edvin, the bearded mountain monk, no matter how delicious, charming, and incredibly gentle," Tori had to add, "is never leaving the wild kingdom. What I did was for the best, and so is this. Thank you, though." "Anytime," Blair said with a weak smile. "You're a brick, and I'd be lost without you," Tori answered. "Why you want to be my PA is anyone's guess, but you're worth every nickel of that bonus." "I'm hoping I'm worth a ride on your coattails." "My success is yours." Tori lifted a champagne flute and indulged herself. "If you can stand me." "You're Molly, only bigger," said Blair on the back end of a hug. High praise considering my munchkin is the cutest, smartest, most adorable piece of work God ever made. Tori's heart swelled like always with talk of her child. "She is that. We'll see what you say about me at the end of this weekend." Blair cringed and pointed across Tori's shoulder. "Check it out." Tori spun. "Edvin?" "Victoria, my sweet little V. It's me." The cultivated shout, executed in a frightfully stirring baritone, caught everyone's attention. Edvin Finn, featuring a shocking lack of chin hair, stopped short on the snowy lawn, coppery red roses dashed at his feet. Tori may not recall every detail of Molly's father, but the Sasquatch Blair hired, fully muscled, slick-suited, and stalled to stare at her despite nonstop snow, brought things back. Edvin wasn't a drunk, but over the top? Yes. What else would spur a man to propose in a matter of hours? The missing beard threw her, but appearances were just that, and, if Tori were to maintain her reputation, it would have to look like Edvin had changed. Seriously, and not for the better. It would be better for Tori to ignore the masculine features that, even from here, made her feel more female than all her primping. Every woman under the tent likely suffered the same. This actor was pure mountain man, except for his accent. Or was that mountain? He exuded testosterone, hard and unadulterated, from his high and tight fair hair, prominent brow, and large but well-formed nose, to the exaggerated lantern jaw that made her think Dudley Do-Right. That's better. She'd think of her hired husband as a joke. Molly had the entire collection of vintage cartoons since before she was born. The perfect vehicle to explain old stereotypes so history did not repeat itself. Women did not need rescuing. "Well done," she said to Blair, then took her seat. "I'll take it from here." A male staff member, decked out in gold braid livery, flew to collect the flowers dropped by Tori's husband. He insisted the gentleman in the black formal wear accept his apologies, while another staff member attempted to cover the late arrival with a jumbo umbrella. "Be careful. Those are for my wife." "That's right. That vision is mine," Edvin blustered. "Over there. The delectable emerald whose evil eye is so well deserved." After a split-second wink to Blair, Tori lifted her chin. "Don't be silly, dear. You're late. That's something I understand. We try," she said to the ladies, showering her with unspoken sympathy. Gift exchange was coming early, and maybe the partnership. Aldrich Sr. grimaced from the head table, and Tori bit her lip before casting Jeremy a plaintive look. What else could she do? The heir apparent responded as hoped. His crinkling forehead was a special delivery condolence card. "Come and sit beside me," she called. Mr. Finn followed instructions. Almost. He entered the tent, flicked ice off his shoulders, raked his short stand of thick hair, and grinned. Too smoothly while towering over her. Tori touched her updo before she could stop herself, as if her hair needed checking. She was ready to do her part to end this marriage. "I'll take those." He snatched the rumpled bouquet from the approaching help, then took a knee. A collective female gasp approved his grandiose gesture. His looking like Thor's earthbound twin, forget Dudley Do-Right, had nothing to do with it. It shouldn't. Tori reminded herself, feeling flush in places better preserved for Jeremy Aldrich, or nobody at all. Men were far too much trouble. "Forgive me, Victoria. Forgive me for everything. I'm a waste of flesh, a fool, and get up." She grabbed the roses and laid them on the table. "You'll ruin your clothes." "Rags," he said. "Rags she'd be billed for. Worthless. But not you, not our family. And I've been, you know. Mixed company prevents me from saying exactly what I've been. But they know I need forgiveness. I'll make it up to you, my sweet little V, starting right now." "What? What are you doing?" she hissed. He caught her hand in his, flipped it over, and kissed her palm, slowly and with an expertise that demanded immediate firing. "I swear in front of all this company, your friends and colleagues who, I hope, will hold me to account, I'm not going anywhere ever again. I refuse to leave your side." What? The sympathy she'd hoped to stir died in a rush of redemptive sighs. Who had Blair hired? A comedian? "Sit. Sit and we'll talk," she said with a smile so forced the muscles in her neck felt like felled trees. Her husband caught her gaze despite Tori's desire to stare past him and this dumb idea. Green. His eyes were green and a perfect match for Molly's dad. Precisely what Tori asked for. "You are beautiful, Victoria, inside and out. I don't deserve you," he said. She muttered, "No, just a pink slip. You are not Frank Sinatra." "Who?" "You'll do this my way, or you're not doing it at all." Delving into particulars of the bourbon baritone's repertoire was not on the agenda. Edvin Finn was hired to make a quick scene and scoot, no matter how hot his voice was. Buttercream with that old black magic she'd best avoid. She finally broke from his lovelock inspection and noticed people observing her with dreamy, quiver-lipped expressions. Lovely. The whole of Yates Aldrich would expect a holiday husband-wife reunion, complete with makeup rituals. The men because Edvin deigned to apologize. The women because of how he apologized. Forget the apology. If there was an ethical investment attached to jumping a man's bones, Tori could make bank on this man before the night was through. Meanwhile, first impressions lasted the longest. While others may ogle, Aldrich Sr. may think the only reason she married Edvin was for carnal purposes. Another reason she'd said no to the real Edvin if she thought on it. She liked being in control of all her faculties, at all times. Tori thrust the bouquet toward passing staff. "Put these in water, please. Thank you." She'd have to update the panting meat-eater Blair hired. But how and where? What should have been a tame green gaze zeroed in, making her feel like a singular lamb shank at an all-veggie buffet. This guy obviously misunderstood Blair, or had gotten his roles confused. Satisfaction flickered across the table as Edvin sat, lifting a single rose from the bouquet before it disappeared. His smirk communicated intelligence and, annoyingly enough, more humor. Not quite the attitude for a contrite spouse or an actor intent on pleasing a client. "Maybe we should excuse ourselves and have a brief chat. Husband and wife." She refrained from touching her hair or anything else that may give the man the impression of her being flustered, when a ping, ping, ping stopped her mid-rise. A toast. A toast. Aldrich Sr. lifted a bubbly champagne flute, although he remained seated. A swiftly supplied microphone aided his thin voice. "To family, forgiveness, and futures. The best gift that Christmas offers us all." Guests responded with raised glasses and a ripple of "to family, forgiveness, and futures." Tori focused on Molly, forgiving herself and looking to the future while her cheeks bloomed. Her upper lip kicked in with a moisture mustache. Time to go. She stood, pushed her chair in, and waited until Edvin took his full height once more. A full-blown sequoia sprouted in 2 seconds. She said, "Follow me. We need to talk. And do not take my hand, or touch me." The brush of thick fingers against her sequin-covered hip was a no-go. So was glancing up through her lashes. Astrid was right. It had been far too long for Tori. Starched linen consumed her field of vision, where the actor's coat fell away. A heady mix of woods, spice, and man flared her nostrils. Impossible to resist. It would be for most women, single or not, deprived or not. That wasn't the best qualifier, but thoughts happened. A too frequent excuse, so she rejected the urge to squeeze. Where had Blair found this guy? Bricks R Us? He fit the description, though, except for the whiskers. Although his 5 o'clock shadow made Tori giddy. An attempted sidestepping revealed Jeremy Aldrich. Lips pruned, the wrinkles on his forehead far more than character lines. Okay. "Something wrong?" came rumbling thunder. Tori peered straight up. "Wait till we're alone." "Whatever you say, Victoria. I'm here for you, and only you." Tori managed a tight nod and a turn on one heel. The back route out of the tent would work best. Encounters with an Aldrich of either generation were best avoided until she clarified objectives with her sexy spouse. Who knew a Bigfoot would clean up so well? They passed well-wishers, and those who did not know what was going on thanks to champagne and a fully stocked bar. Tori gathered her skirts and accepted an umbrella as she neared the peppermint-striped exit, when another brush of fingers stiffened her spine. She swirled and had to choke on the white-hot lava she'd wanted to spew. "I'd give anything to get a line like that from my husband, from any man," said a woman in a glittering Donna Karan sheath dress. The chunky gold and diamond bracelet encasing her wrist could fund a mission to Mars. The giant diamond studs on either ear reached another galaxy. Then again, he could say nothing so long as he looked like yours. That's very kind of you to say, Tori faltered. Liz Hills, it's a pleasure. The woman stared heat holes into Edvin's dress shirt. Tori found her voice. May we chat later? I have business to tend. Like getting a guest list. Hills was an unfamiliar name, and her jeweler was fabulous. I'll bet you do, Liz's partner said with a snort. Phineas Franklin Hills. Frank. It's a pleasure. He bowed from the waist. Military precision with hints of glory days at some long-gone academy. And don't let the groveling sway you. I'd be on my knees nightly if I had a wife like you waiting for me. Liz frowned, and Tori was free to retreat toward the house under cover of an umbrella and a public reunion she did not need. What were you doing back there? She asked her husband, once their audience was out of earshot. The jumbo heaters on either side of the path could melt for all the fire in her belly, but she needed to manage this, not make matters worse. Being a boor. No, that was not being a boor. That was marvelous, her insides cried, beyond comprehension, and something that may have worked on Tori pre-Molly. Leave it to Tori's instincts to react to a man who had no future. Although this one could do something with that voice. She smiled to herself and offered Edvin umbrella cover, like she could reach that high. Don't fuss yourself, he said. Anything else? She reassessed his face and form and put herself in check despite the twang of melancholy that would have her, if only for an instant, think this was Edvin. Her Edvin. Molly's father, she corrected. I'm the one paying you, so do as I say, said Tori. No ad-libs and no Charlton Heston ham acts. Just be a jerk and you can get out of here. Better for everyone. Tonight? Tori groaned, yes. I thought that fee was for the whole weekend. I reward performance, she said with intent. So you're not a fan of a solid day's work equaling a solid day's pay? Nights included. The bourbon baritone struck again, and Tori felt the sizzle throughout her veins. Cutting me loose would be a waste, he said. You have a weekend, so use it. For what? She needed distance. Jeremy had to be watching. To communicate to these fine people why someone as insightful as you married me outside the obvious. And why you didn't dump me. What is it, 3 years ago? 4? I've done my own homework for this assignment, he said while shock rose like sap. Do you get much work with that Secret Service attitude? Or is it blackmail money you're after? Look, ma'am, if I come in stumbling and act the part of the jerk, your high-flying friends may wonder at your judgment. You're the one telling other people what to buy and when, right? He quirked a bird's nest eyebrow and continued before she could respond. If I continually apologize for boorish behavior, a pattern that repeats and repeats, you'll gain all the sympathy and with no one wondering why you've been such an idiot. I'm an idiot? He had nerve and a good point. You know I'm making sense. Is that so? She flexed toes inside her pumps and felt torn about what disturbed her most. The superior grin making her steam or a green-eyed monster reading her mind. Who cared who was watching? They were a husband and wife having a private moment. That Tori enjoyed it was her problem. He said, yes, you should be saying kitos. That's thank you in Finnish. I'm surprised you're not pushing for suurkiitokset. That's a great big thank you, chock full of gratitude. That seems to be what you're looking for. Tori wasn't devoid of language skills. I wouldn't say no if you offered. I was excellent back there. Everything you needed despite the short-sightedness of the initial script I was given. The short-form resume Blair sent Tori mentioned expansive travels. Tori was dealing with an ambassador's brat, one who enjoyed mocking international officials and employers, apparently. That explained the ego and the pitch-perfect accent mixed with sarcasm enough to poison any woman's welling hopes. Maybe you're right, Maybe not. But that still doesn't mean you can act without direction. Her direction. Clear any future brainchild through me. He threw another devilish grin, and she braced herself against a jolt of admiration. Quick on his feet and intuitive. Blair would have briefed her if she knew of this hireling's impromptu script change, although the volatile attitude may explain why her PA seemed eager to call the whole thing off. This actor was only doing his best, though. Who wouldn't if they lived from one gig to the next? Being underutilized often had a debilitating effect. Any effect this fake mate was having on Tori was owed to deprivation and nerves. He was not Edvin either. No way. Molly's father was a shaggy, adorable beast. A gentle man with a gentle manner who Tori wished had a real future, when she indulged in wishes. Get with the program and I may get work for you. Overseas, she thought. That would fit her long-term plans and make this husband of hers grateful. You want a permanent position? You would give me that? Edvin tugged the umbrella from Tori's grip, and she flashed with anger at her own reaction more than anything. Liz and her husband, armed with their own umbrella, chose that moment to take the path to the house. Of course. The woman would likely hound Tori and Edvin all weekend. Another reason for this act to end. Rearing bare shoulders, Tori said, I'm more than able to hold my own umbrella, darling. You are. I was merely... Forgive me, he answered in a low growl. The way he spoke moved Tori to the core. Why? She considered the question while flirting with forgiveness, pondering the shadows, playing beneath dark, shifting brows, when her husband for hire moved in. This stranger, this... Her heart tottered when his mouth, firm and fantastic, shut down protest. Chapter 3. A firm hand found Tori's lower back, fingers splayed and gently massaging. She allowed it, for a moment, because of approaching company, she told herself. She kissed back. Her stiff muscles melted. The spreadsheet in her head fell away, dates and dollars tumbling like the onset of an avalanche. Her client list and the corresponding notation profit margins and golden futures took a ski and dared the ride. Tingles she'd forgotten, or tried to, roused every inch of her sleeping skin. Oh yes. Oh. Oh no. This man was so warm, welcome because of the cold, worshipful, like a mountain dipped down to wonder at barren grasslands. Edvin? Her heart begged the question as the man she hired breathed, Victoria, against her mouth. Tori leaned in and let herself imagine when the hand at her back tensed. The lips she kissed turned hungry, demanding in a way she'd never, should never. This wasn't Edvin. Edvin had been tender enough to bring her to tears, gentle enough. She yanked away despite her knees threatening a walkout. Her employee had a mind to make his client swoon, or at least assert himself when he should apologize for going rogue. Whatever his reasoning, it wouldn't work. Tori decided, rejecting all flares save angry ones. Tori wasn't a follower. She cut him with a loaded glare that he received like sweet nothings. Heat singed her inside and out, her lungs sucking in overlarge doses of air and indignation. But Tori knew how to use an audience too. The hills passed a little too quickly, and that was fine. Liz had to be looking over her shoulder, so Tori swiped her lips with a dismissive whip of fingers. Any feelings, if she allowed them, she'd reserve for Jeremy. Instincts, too. 4 years was too long to leave personal needs off her list. That was her problem. This Edvin imitation was a warning, a mile high, she admitted with an upward glance that gave her a full view of temptation. Although his cologne failed to intoxicate like the real Edvin's soap and water scent, she could not let this actor stay the night. Liz and co. wanted to witness a Christmas reunion. Tori's aim was divorce. That and finding someone to be Molly's father. One she could manage, Tori reminded herself. Jeremy would do, she reaffirmed. He could use a grandfather-approved anchor considering his recent wandering. If Tori landed Jeremy, she wouldn't concern herself where he went. She could continue on as she had, but with legitimacy secured. So long as Tori had what she needed to make Molly's future untouchable, nothing else mattered. "You don't miss me?" asked Edvin, the fake Edvin. "Miss you? It's not that easy," she answered in a sober voice, and she meant it. "Love isn't playtime, sorry." "Are you?" Her husband backed up and passed her the umbrella. Sleet pelted his smooth-shaved face and those kissable lips. Good. Maybe he'd cool off. She should. His shifting expression, equal parts pain, anger, and regret, kept her motionless. What was wrong with her? This guy was on her payroll, an actor, and yet he behaved as if he had a personal stake in whatever happened next. Meanwhile, her mind swirled with thoughts of someone else. Molly's dad deserved closure. To be a part of his daughter's life. To know Molly existed. This actor's presence was providing Tori with an opportunity to face her mistakes, or at least acknowledge the impact of wrongdoing she'd successfully silenced. A shiver rocked her. But now was not a therapy session. Tori touched her forehead, her middle finger finding that space between her brow. She cursed beneath her breath for showing weakness. The scene husband and wife presented was good, though. Tori felt trapped and highly agitated by a man supposedly licensed via holy matrimony to press her every button. "So it's a headache," said Edvin, "not me." He squared axe-handle shoulders, and Tori scowled. Not funny. He laughed. "Neither is Molly being an only child." Then he left her for the house. "Don't you dare bring Molly into this." The words slipped out along with another round of chuckles, not Edvin's. "Keep trying, old man." Phineas spoke loud enough for Tori to hear where he stood on the stone balustrade steps with Liz. "If there's no hope for you, the rest of us don't stand a chance." Edvin was after more than a chance. He needed payback. The evening hadn't begun that way. He wanted to assess the mother of his child, discover what he could, and assert his parental rights. This entire trip to the U.S. was unnecessary, though, even if he wanted to carry through with the Yates-Aldrich buyout. And he did, if only to honor the memory of Montgomery Yates and provide Stan the means to cover private debts. But angel investors, the term Edvin preferred, could spread their wings and save companies they planned to restructure without actual travel. Victoria could have recognized Edvin too. The father of her child. But no. He'd hoped she would. Yes, he shaved his beard and trimmed his hair. He wore a monkey suit and not the puffy down and denim he preferred. It had been 4 years, too. 4 long years compared to scant hours of... Edvin swiped his mouth as if that would lessen the recollection of what he'd lost. He hadn't forgotten her. What she looked like, moved like, tasted like. Curses he reserved for close family twitched his lips as he continued toward the house. He had thought leaving Victoria standing on the path would feel good, but the zinging in his muscles and other places only increased. His mention of a sibling for Molly struck him like an axe blow, but with none of the relief he typically experienced when swinging the real deal. "She'll come around," Phineas said while his wife continued upstairs, leaving both men to the elements. The snow tapered off, so there was really nothing to it. The icy breeze was a welcome friend. Around to what? Edvin let his voice carry. "You know my wife better than me, most likely." Victoria stiffened at that. It looked that way when Edvin turned to spy the mother of his child slamming the umbrella shut and heading his way. She'd paid for services she wasn't receiving. That's how she saw Edvin, as a service. Seeing red, he headed up the stairs. Had Victoria planned to get pregnant? Had she been looking for a donor when he'd caught her assessing men at Santa Claus Village? Their mistletoe kiss, the same Edvin orchestrated, is one he cherished. But maybe Victoria had maneuvered him. Your whiskers tickle, she'd laughed, with eyes bright as any summer sky. I've never kissed Santa Claus before. Well, here's another sample so you can tell me if you like it. I, surprised you have to ask. She'd tugged his beard, real and frosted white for the occasion. I must be slipping. He caught her up in his arms, lifting her tiny frame against his massive one. Edvin never felt like a giant despite his height, but Victoria's simplicity made him feel larger than life. He'd snagged the mistletoe off the beam in the lodge entry and followed her with it, pinched between thumb and forefinger, and always wondered if she knew. She'd said nothing, but showed him plenty in the hours that followed. That free spirit who'd captured him was nothing like the woman he just kissed. The militant executive, intent on being single despite little Molly deserving a father, and a fully engaged mother, fumed behind him. Edvin strained his neck against a sudden flush and nodded toward Mrs. Hills waiting inside the glassed entry. For him or her husband was anyone's guess, but there was no mistaking her displeasure. You have experience with headaches, Edvin asked Phineas. Frank, he reminded himself. We all do, said Frank. You should talk to your own kind more often. Good luck. Tori left the umbrella at the base of the stairs and took each step with care. A faceplant was one spectacle she'd rather avoid. The same applied to any slips with her husband for hire. His arrogant attitude wouldn't work to her benefit. He'd caught her off guard. She expected compliance but welcomed the challenge of taming this bull. To benefit her long-term plan, not to satisfy any Beauty and the Beast fantasy that she'd given up long before she'd locked eyes, or lips, on Molly's handsome dad. Tori would have chased him down with mistletoe if he hadn't thought of it first. Please, Edvin, patience. We have scant time since you're due to leave at any moment, said Tori. She emphasized the last and reared bare shoulders beneath Liz Hill's envious inspection through the glassed entry. Phineas pushed open the door for them and said, Your wife makes a valid argument. But I have no desire to argue, Edvin answered, allowing Tori to go through first. His smile cut straight to their power struggle. But with you frosting me out, is it any wonder poor Molly is with a sitter all the time instead of the family she deserves? Edvin muttered an insincere apology to the Hills for the sake of appearance, the pretense casting him in a favorable light, but not for long. Tori braced herself and said, How dare you? She sniffed for effect. Day in and day out, I'm there, I'm with our child, working and mothering, supplying for our baby with my time and substance. She meant every word. If that doesn't show that Molly is my primary concern, I don't know what does. Score one for Tori. The Hills may be their only witness, but news traveled. Unlike your adventure schedule that revolves around you, yourself, and whatever client demands you show them the latest and greatest in how to risk death, she lifted a brow and endured the passing storm of glowing green eyes that, for whatever reason, stabbed her with guilt as Phineas Hill entered the house behind them. Then I wish you insisted on us being home this weekend, the actor said, instead of wasting time at this house party. Our child means everything to me, more than you know, and I'll spend the rest of my days proving as much, to both of you. However many days you have left, 1, 2, no thank you. I never know what Christmas will be our last, she said to the Hills. Was that another reason she'd said no to the real Edvin? Liz sucked in a horrified breath, and Tori apologized for real when the woman rushed to her side. She had no desire to ruin anyone's Christmas, and yet Tori had to get ahead of this situation. Please excuse us. Me. Tori said to the woman, who smoothed her back with genuine warmth. "I would like to chat at a later date. You're so kind, and I'm betting we have a lot in common." That much she meant. "When you're calm, I understand. We can get together after this weekend is over, if you'd like," Liz assured. She dished Edvin a "how could you" grimace, while offering Tori the mainstay of woman-to-woman understanding. The same Tori needed to end this sham. So why did she taste bitter herbs? Edvin's hurt, drawn from his own experience, she was sure, moved her. Tears weren't falling, but something stung the rims of her eyes. This ad-lib emotion was not for her. Neither was Edvin's brush of fingers against her cheek. She'd have to talk scripting with him at their earliest convenience. Firmly, and with the promise of penalties. Not that she knew what they'd be. She needed him, and he knew it. Cheeks burning, she excused herself and headed toward another set of stairs to the sound of Mr. Hill clearing his throat. He was chuckling, most likely. If she were thinking instead of feeling, she would too, albeit under her breath. But men stuck together, much like women. This Edvin was proving a goldmine of opportunity, though. With every push, he provided her the perfect counter. Blair mentioned nothing of fighting over siblings for Molly. A great angle that stung just the same. Tori refused to glance down, but headed to her suite instead. The one she would not share with Edvin Finn, fake or not. Chapter 4. After 1. "Yes, ma'am," and a wink to Phineas, Edvin followed his weekend wife to the second floor. This charade was ending tonight. Forget Stan's advice to watch and wait. Edvin needed honesty, and he needed it now. That last bit about Victoria being there for Molly while Edvin was absent was intolerable. Not when the so-called victim had denied Edvin a father's rights. I'm coming," Victoria called when he reached the landing, though not to him. Edvin smiled despite himself and strolled down the gallery while she raced toward what he guessed was a jingling phone. The sound stopped before he could identify it. Oh well. Juggle too much and something would always go unanswered. She may take a drive if she didn't slow down. He fished in his pants pocket for his keys, but Victoria had left the door ajar when she flew inside. After what? He had to ask himself. A hot tip on a strapped family firm? A strategic investor eager to steal someone else's hard work? Or did Jeremy Aldrich have competition in replacing the elusive Mr. Finn? That last thought sent a disgusted shudder up Edvin's spine. Victoria may believe she was discreet in her viewing of the Aldrich heir, but Edvin knew the look. Hungry like a wolf. Tori had assessed eagerly what needs must. Survival requires options, and Victoria would survive no matter what, no matter where, and while using anyone, apparently. Though not at Edvin's expense. Not anymore. He still did not know how having a baby aided her, but there had to be some profit in it. Her lies would end tonight. With a steadying breath, Edvin readied himself for a private showing of Victoria Strikes Back and peeked inside the bedroom. The chandelier, haloed by ornate plasterwork on the ceiling, provided adequate light, although Victoria, bouncing down on the far edge of the pillowy bed, clicked on a tasseled lamp. She snatched the now silent phone from where it lay beside a pair of black-framed glasses and swiped the screen. No answer. "Come on, I'm here," she grumbled. "Pick up." Her free hand massaged her temples in a strained vice grip of thumb and one perfectly manicured middle finger. Whoever she'd missed had made her angry. Focused. Draped French doors gave way to a stone balcony in front of her. The breathtaking snowscape with multicolored floodlights should have waylaid some of her tension. But she behaved as if it wasn't there. Black lashes brushed Victoria's cheeks, and Edvin suffered the thump of his heart. He should never have kissed her because he was torn between righteous anger and sadness that Victoria was blind to such beauty. She whispered, "Please answer," when a giddy smile broke through the gloom. A second passed, and Edvin tugged off his bow tie. "Hi, Molly Dolly. Mommy's here." Victoria jumped up. "How's my big girl?" Hal was right. His heart soared. Edvin, slipping inside the candy box apartment, shoes sinking inside plush Turkish carpets, layered over more plush carpet, wondered too. He wished he could steal the phone as he silently closed the door behind him and just say hi. He'd whisk Molly away from New York if he had his way, and show his baby girl what mattered. Pure air, nature's treasures, and an outside world she would likely never experience if Edvin didn't take the reins. He took control of himself for now, however, and listened. The last thing Molly needed was a heated introduction to her father. Victoria may be disinterested in the rugged lifestyle Edvin offered. She'd fight him, and too bad. He'd be the parent Molly deserved. Calm, there, and putting the baby first, instead of the strung-out working woman managing far more than she should. Why anyone would prefer this pressure cooker existence was beyond him. Overpriced, overrated, and a killer. He ached to leave on the first flight out of town if only to let winner's purse run free. Free with Molly looking on and laughing minus a role model that called for selling her soul, and for what? At least it wasn't a man on the telephone. "Did you eat all your dinner?" Victoria paced before the frosty glass, then stopped to contemplate nature, finally. Edvin sidestepped to ensure his reflection didn't catch him out. "Not everything?" said Victoria. "Uh-oh." The single mother rubbed her forehead again, the space between her brows, and pinched her lips. Someone was saying something, and Edvin bit back words of his own. What would he say? The ringing in his chest went viral, and he hated what Victoria had done. To him, to Molly, and to herself. Unshed tears choked him. His knees shook, and he knew. He still cared, and there was no way around it. "We'll see about that. Let Mommy talk to Nanny," continued Victoria. Talk to Nanny? Another jolt rocked Edvin free from neck to knees. Yes, he knew Molly had a nanny. That knowledge alone set his teeth on edge. He expected Victoria to use a name at least. This preference for calling whoever it was by their job title smacked too close to home. His mother did that. Easier than learning a parade of names or teaching her child to treat people like people. Edvin palmed his clean-shaven face while mother and child wrangled. Good. Molly was no pushover despite her tender years, and Edvin took what credit he could while reassessing his desire to tell Victoria everything. She'd be his employee soon enough. That would tick her off, even if he wasn't intent on becoming part of Molly's life. And this husband-for-hire situation granted him the perfect opportunity to glean what details he needed to ensure he got custody, if need be. And the truth, not whatever story Victoria would concoct. So his Victoria failed to recognize him. Their kiss awakened nothing outside of a physical response in her. Flattering, but not really. She may flush for any man. Edvin Finn was a placeholder, and the actor she hired to play the part even less so. She dismissed him from her mind as if the word husband held the same weight as nanny. The burn searing a path up from his stomach was personal. Molly's future, however, was a matter of justice. Life versus a slow death of endless nannies being shuttled from one distraction to another, and the boarding school farce that left a child barely knowing the parents who paid the bills. Did Molly suck down sweet potatoes? Shudder at green beans like him at that age? Was the park Molly's favorite place to play, or was it the zoo? What was her nursery like? If Edvin told the truth now, he'd never find out. Not until the end of litigation. Yes, Nanny, I know. Victoria twirled and Edvin hunkered behind the armoire. But it's all right this time. The nanny's voice crackled, and Edvin scowled so hard his cheeks hurt. Victoria looked far from pleased, too. She tugged flyaway bangs back against her hair, and Edvin shrugged out of the top half of his monkey suit to find some relief. You're right, though, of course. Victoria relented with a sigh. I'll only keep her another few minutes. Promise. She toed off her heels and kicked them toward the glass. Do you like your new blocks? She asked in that cheery voice. Edvin imagined a miniature of Victoria's delighted smile and swallowed a cry. Santa will bring you more, said Victoria, but I thought you deserved something now. You've been so good. Although I expect you to eat your beans next time. All of them. Victoria cradled the phone. The protective gesture communicating love. Caring. The same saturated the angry voice of downstairs, almost making Edvin wonder if this was the same woman he'd met in Finland. The woman with a heart. Then she turned. Hi, was all he could say. Just a sec, Molly. Victoria's tone remained in place until she muted the phone. What are you doing sneaking up behind me? She asked him. Sneaking? You wanted privacy. He whipped up his jacket. Shall we go below? No. All right then. Wrap up your call. I'll wait. And watch. He enjoyed seeing Victoria shower someone with love, no matter how strained. Maybe they could work together. He had no desire to strip Victoria of everything, unlike she'd done to him. That would be cruel. To Molly. I'll be home on Sunday night, Molly. Kisses? Victoria waited as always for her baby's smacking sounds, although she refused to blush beneath her employee's unwavering stare. Sweet dreams. Tori would entertain the same once she'd established parameters and made the most of the scene she'd created downstairs. The evening was still young, although, according to schedule, the party should move inside now. Whatever the case, she would not react to this man. Fruitless efforts never interested her. Jeremy Aldrich, by comparison, was a fertile field. Molly sniffled, and Tori said, Mommy loves you too, and hung up. That was adorable, said the man with the death wish. He'd never act again if she had her way. Making it out of this room was up for debate, too. Okay. She traded her phone for black glasses. The ritual lent her solace. We need precision here. We should make use of time and circumstances you have. That was true, but I'm the client, she emphasized as he unbuttoned the top of his dress shirt. She would determine what and how she needed services rendered. Forget the hairy chest winking into view. Broad, tanned as if the man had no fear of the sun's damaging rays, and off limits. Completely, she affirmed with shying eyes. So here we go. Rule 1, no touching, for whatever reason. Rule 2, never break Rule 1, he said. Rule 2, no personal questions. I'll decide what you need to know and when. He sat on the chaise and shucked off his shoes. Otherwise you'll have to kill me? Don't be ridiculous. This whole arrangement was bad enough. I'm serious. You should check that scowl you've been giving me, Mrs. Finn. I'd swear you were Lohi, returned from myth to enchant or lay waste, whatever your mood. The glasses changed nothing. Good. If you think I'm an evil Finnish witch queen, maybe you'll do as instructed instead of going rogue. She noted his approving lift of brows, but refrained from commenting. Tori did not need to prove her knowledge of Molly's culture, something Tori studied to teach her child. But this Edvin's bait, baited her. That was likely why she enjoyed their kiss. Molly's father was a teaser, too, and it had been so long. Sadly, the real Edvin hadn't pursued her. He hadn't even looked. Not that she would have entertained his outrageous marriage proposal. The Lapland Sasquatch. It was best to consider him in unflattering terms. Had other interests. His focus lay in the snowy backwoods, extreme sports, and avoiding the world. Reality. Who proposed marriage after knowing someone less than 24 hours, and with no reliable means of support? A delusional mountain goat, maybe. Definitely a thrill seeker. Revisiting the nonsensical, however sweet and ultimately beneficial, was a waste of time. The life-sized reminder of the real Edvin would disappear soon enough. Hopefully, the fake would take nostalgia with him. Gooey sentiments served no purpose. None at all. Molly was the priority. Keeping her in the right circle of playmates, schools, and whatever else could be had by those who exercised restraint. Jeremy could go where he wanted, be with whomever he wanted. The Finnish meat bus who toppled Tori with his gentle giant routine was the kind to avoid. Tori had been her mother's biggest mistake, and they'd both suffered. Mostly from Tori's mom bemoaning her daughter's existence. If this, if that, if. Breathing deeply to counter snapping tension, Tori righted her heels with a foot, then tucked her toes inside either shoe to reinforce the reason for this weekend. Stability, assured advancement, and the securing of Molly's future. Far beyond this holiday house party. The now shirtless player who'd invaded her space may believe he could negotiate fringe benefits, but Tori wasn't part of his compensation package. He wasn't part of hers either. Not that she went in for that kind of thing. She fled to the powder room to check her lipstick. "You should have knocked," she said with definite attitude. "This is our room. It would have been odd if I knocked and the door was ajar," he answered from the bedroom. "Your recent convert, Mrs. Hills, insisted I come and may well have followed me, to ensure I carried through as instructed." "She said that?" "Her eyes," he answered. "You two make a prickly pair. Are you from the same coven?" "Press too hard and you'll find out," said Victoria, when 6 feet of attitude, plus an undetermined amount of additional inches, filled the powder room throughway. "It's a shame about your beard, though. You didn't have to shave." "You like beards?" "I dislike weak chins." She swallowed to maintain. "And I'm locking my door in future. You can pound the house down or seek other sleeping arrangements. Either would serve my agenda." "The agenda being Jeremy Aldrich?" Victoria bristled. "I said no personal questions." "You think that was a question?" he laughed. "If you're concerned about how things look, though, I'd say your chosen line of ascent is wholly work-related. Nothing personal, not where Jeremy Aldrich is concerned." Her nostrils flared, and there was no helping it. "How would you know?" "Since I haven't stipulated no questions on my end of this deal, I'll answer." The imposter surveyed the array of beauty products she'd set out on the counter. "He's not your type, and you need all this like you need those glasses." Another nature lover, fabulous. She couldn't land Jeremy fast enough. He moved closer and said, "I'm not following." "Good. An argument would serve nothing. Pull yourself together. You're due downstairs." "It's late and I'm supposed to be apologizing," he objected. She objected to the thick finger he used to trace the outer edge of her glasses. "Do you need these?" His rumbling voice clear-cut Tori's resolution. "No reacting. No touching." "I'm not touching. Not you." His thick brows danced. "Do you need glasses?" "I require them to do my job, and that's your last personal question," she said. His interrupting her conversation with Molly was intrusion enough. Please, step aside, and if you want to stay, fine. I'm flexible. Jeremy may remove the brute from her room if all went well. Not that she needed help. Now move. Mr. Finn executed an obsequious bow and made way for her to pass. Barely. Where are you working tonight? In public or private? 3 can be a crowd, especially when one is flexible. The study. How dare he insinuate otherwise? What am I to do? Wait. Pine for you? He inspected his fingernails, then hit her with a quirk of chiseled lips. Shall I call room service and ask Liz to join me unless she's already on her way to ensure I'm treating you with all the love and warmth you deserve? Tori ignored him until she reached the other side of the hall door that she should have locked against him. Then, engaging that fabled glower from inside the corridor, she said, "You'll stay on your side of that." She pointed toward the threshold and whipped an imaginary line like Vanna White highlighting a phrase. "I forbid you to cross that line. Do so, and there will be consequences," she said. Understood? Tori understood she was blowing smoke, but held her chin high. "I won't step foot over it," he said with infuriating meekness. "Your wish is my walking order, O great and terrible Loki. So you value your life. 3 cheers for Finnish myths. We'll see how you feel about paychecks." She lightened up, or tried. Playing the enchantress with the magical power to bend men to her will was another something she'd pay for. Far more valuable than the latest in Korean skincare, if Tori could opt for a forceful man and tame him only when necessary. Beasts had their pluses. Jeremy Aldrich was wholly controllable. That held little appeal beyond the upside of minimal risk management. "I'll tack on a bonus if things go well," she said. Maybe that would take his edge off. "You're a generous witch." "I can be, so long as you don't cross that line," she answered. They both knew what she really meant. Or maybe it was just Tori wanting to cross into territory she missed. Leaning into the room, she grasped the brass knob and yanked the door shut. Exactly like she wished to do with that portion of her past that included Molly's dad, and all those feelings that threatened to run her if she let them. Chapter 5. Tori gulped butterflies and willed the crinkles in her forehead to disappear without touching. With both hands lifting her skirt, she descended the stairs. Slowly, unlike she'd done on the way up. Nodding at passing staff, she turned in the library's direction. What she thought was the library. She'd only concerned herself with Stan's office on the rare occasion she'd visited. Muffled talk buzzed through the dark paneled hallway when she reached the first transept with strategically placed candelabra and poinsettia displays, and she followed the sound. The absence of guests in this area told her she'd been upstairs longer than she'd thought. Time enough for the group to gather in their proper place and exchange more than greetings. Great. Her colleagues would naturally draw conclusions about her rocky reunion with the dashing Edvin. Disgusting yet unavoidable. Tori would never duck under covers with that imposter. Not even under threat of this mythical Finnish witch with whom she shared certain qualities. If only. Tori could use some magic. How she would love to command the room, any room. Instead, as chatter grew, she understood that Stan's library was the realm of unadulterated confirmation bias. Some guests would insist a fight ensued upstairs, or the passionate happenstance that made Tori a mother. So long as no one suspected she wanted Jeremy for his money and position, she should be good. All set. Happier than the holly-jolly husband for hire she thought she'd be working with instead of the Y chromosome upstairs. Edvin seemed compliant enough now. Then why, Conscience demanded, did her stomach keep squirming? Because the actor was right? Jeremy wasn't Tori's type, yet that's precisely why she should marry him. And she would. One shudder and 2 turns later, Tori passed an impressive display of vintage wall sconces and an exotic carpet runner that led to a round, marble-floored room. An antechamber. Wonderful. Well lit and the perfect place for Tori to linger while she scanned mahogany niches and endless books in the library for Jeremy Aldrich. She set immediately to work, and with demure, downcast eyes, naturally. Her glasses, forget what Edvin thought, lent the aura of studiousness. Tori's attempt at normalcy. The dignity these people expected when they encountered the amazing Victoria Barclay, not the jangled nerve she'd debuted earlier. What would the next few minutes be like? Would guests applaud her? Shun her? Feelings were feelings, and she needed to put on a show. But uncouth wasn't something this crowd typically lauded. She'd never lost it like she had with Edvin. The genuine article, or, if she let herself, the faker taking full advantage of her dime. A fresh round of reaction twitched the muscles in her jaw. But no matter. Tori swept her bangs aside with the lightest touch and put all comparison of smooth skin versus bearded chin aside. Soap and water was her preference, but the cologne imprinted in fresh memory was having an effect. Despite the cinnamon-scented pine cones filling crystal bowls and costly beeswax candles lending the perfect glow to the corresponding round display at the center of the room. "Shall I pine for you?" The husky words repeated in her head, and Tori's eyes popped out of their own accord. Her focus? Another plasterwork ceiling. She barely noticed the antique volumes laid open inside a glass case on the table. The toxic mountain camping out in her room had better stay on his side of the threshold. If not, Tori's corporate ladder would crumble. Her own social circle would boo her out of town if the man she hired acted on impulse. Molly may get a sibling if Tori let herself go. True, she had said never only seconds ago in her mind. But the kiss she shared with her fake mate seemed to be still happening. Lush lips, firm flat hands rousing sweet weakness, heady exhales, and knock it off. Tori bit her tongue and willed the pain to get her on track. How many discussed-over drinks dates had she staved off for the love of family and a husband who didn't exist? "Tori, how are you? Not going in?" murmured an eager PA whose boss may be under consideration for promotion. Susan was that boss if memory served, although it failed often enough for Tori to pretend delight. No sense drawing more shade on herself, and she couldn't blame the man in her bedroom. "Wonderful. How kind of you to ask," she said instead. The fastidiously dressed 20-something with inky hair, glasses he likely needed, and a midnight blue cummerbund awaited his name instead of passing. "I'm sorry," said Tori. "I'm bad with names." "Jack," he said, "and I'm okay as long as you're here. I bet money that you'd show. Your husband, too." Everyone is eager to talk mountain mastery, spelunking, wingsuit flying, and you think Mr. Finn would have the chance to... "Where are you headed?" she asked. No way Tori was allowing Edvin to chance anything. Talk of caves and wild flights were out. Max smiled. "No, Jack," Tori corrected. "The boss needs her smartphone," he said, and off I go. An extreme adventure if I know. Her. Where was Blair? "Sandra is expecting another end-of-season buyout. I manage the minor things," he said in an admirable display of loyalty. Like Blair did for Tori, she thought. "Well, Merry Christmas and well done, you," she said. Tori had thrown the meaty bones Sandra's way. Jack flashed bright white teeth. "It's a team effort." Right. All boats rise together, or sink. Tori never felt so swamped and out of her element. Better hurry. This year is coming to a close. Tori pointed both index fingers his way, while her stomach executed a prelude to abandon ship. Talk undulated like a speculative wave ahead. The legs that threatened to strike 3 days ago made good on their claim, and Tori froze, not going anywhere. What else were guests betting on? Hoping to see? A pregnant Tori, too swollen and exhausted for partnership beyond emergency nanny services? Had a baby pool begun? What were the odds of the obsequious Edvin making good and never leaving Tori's side? He's pledged as much under the marquee tent. Tori turned her attention to the antiques on the foyer table. She tried. A small painting of a woman with a concerned expression and a tent in the background met Tori's gaze. Feigning interest in the illuminated pages under glass was better than crumbling under pressure, or blushing until her dress caught fire. The spotlighted book, impressive and likely very expensive, stared back. "So what do you think?" Tori whispered to the painted lady. Vines and bizarre flowers Tori couldn't identify bordered the ancient vellum. Adulating males with eyes fixed open hid in the brush. Human nature was so predictable and never changed. "You may be pure and holy and well-intended," she said to the lady. Tori tried for the latter. But what about the knights standing guard? Did chaste, noble anything exist? Was marriage a social norm gone too far? As the product of one thing leading to another, Tori knew the danger of wishful thinking. She'd done the slow slide into feelings herself. Okay, a condensed 24-hour version, followed by immediate regret. Molly was the only plus, but Tori was trying to come clean, or clean up her mess. Meanwhile, her coworkers were taking bets. Sick freaks, twisted, uncaring, and, bets or no bets, Tori would secure Molly's future. Who knew? Molly may be mistress of this house one day, and able to fill the library with whatever collection she wanted, to include Dudley Do-Right cartoons, or whatever her daughter grew to love. "Better late than never," Tori announced as she waited inside the library. "Hello, lovely party, Merry Christmas. Isn't impromptu the bomb?" She hoped the crowd would catch her sarcasm and laugh with her instead of at her. Impromptu stunk. The Vandershotts, Lee Tiller and his significant other, and myriad partner hopefuls, with their designer satellites, acknowledged Tori with lifted brows and the required, "Stunning, absolutely stunning." The hills were nowhere in sight. Astrid, eyebrows jacked up and twitching, stared, like Tori was the cream on an overblown balance sheet that needed skimming. The cat-eye makeup matched the accountant's predatory expression. A stereotype maybe in a little black dress that offered more skin than silk. But when the woman lifted a champagne flute and smirked, Tori had to wonder. Did she know what was going on with Edvin Finn? Was Astrid waiting for Tori to burn? Expecting an opportunity to blackmail her? Expose her? Tori hated the paranoia steeping her system, but collateral damage happened when a woman lived a double life. At least Edvin the actor was safely upstairs with strict orders to stay put. Edvin stalked the length of the French doors and back again. He could pick up Tori's phone and redial the number that would connect him with his daughter, provided Nanny answered the phone. Restrictions were the norm in high-powered households, contrary to the indulgent image plastered all over the trash magazines that the world sucked up. Growing up wealthy often meant growing up without normal bumps and bruises, actual people, and a healthy dose of boredom too often reserved for the lower classes. Those little people allowed to grow organically around friends, family, and without the bubble wrap that made for spoiled failures or an entitled 1%, were the lucky ones. His daughter would be lucky too, but Edvin's gaining custody required intelligence gathering, the kind to be had at this soiree outside this room while engaging the workings of his own brain. not following the orders of the one woman whose priorities screamed for serious psychological analysis. Marrying a man she didn't love, and for what? "Don't cross this line," she'd commanded. "As you wish." Edvin laughed out loud and slowly turned to put his jacket back on. Shoes, too. Tori walked Astrid's way, determined to do this thing, when Blair stepped in from behind a wall of interested men and asked, "Is everything okay? Anything you need, just say the word." "How about a tighter hold on my husband?" Tori responded in a gritty whisper, but kept her smile on. "But we'll table that for later." "The human element. It's always a bear to control, I'm sorry," Blair stammered. "Bear is right, but that's not your fault." Blair eschewed a champagne offer from a passing waiter. "I keep telling myself that." "No problem. Have a good night." Her PA deserved some fun. The Armani cutaway, the really tall one with the eagle eyes and delightfully full lips, looked like he misses your company already. "What's his name?" "Like you'd remember," Blair said. "I would try." Tori would. And she'd ask Blair who Sandra's helper was. Or was that Susan? Names fled. Astrid was sticking, though, like a thorn in sensitive places. "Now enjoy yourself. Have that champagne," said Tori. "Just not too much." When the brunette flushed a deep pink, twitches distorting her flawless red lips, Tori took another look at her PA. "Will I be needing another assistant soon? Sooner rather than later?" Maybe that's how Edvin II slipped past Blair's pitch-perfect screening. Blair seemed seriously distracted, and men were typically not conversation topics between them. "I have no intention of giving up my career," said Blair, "if that's what you mean." "Intentions, don't get me started." "Excuse me." Tori left after a brief squeeze to her assistant's hand and made straight for Jeremy, who'd apparently followed Astrid's champagne salute. She'd check in with Blair during a private moment, after she'd done away with the ham upstairs. Jeremy waited with an unmoving mouth. A boyish black curl lagged over his tanned forehead, while the rest of his face, fine-boned and patrician in every aspect, screamed fully grown. He left the crisp dress shirt she expected open at the collar. Not too much, but enough to communicate ease and authority. His cranberry tie hung loose on either side of his satin lapels. He was at home, finally. And Tori? Well, this was it. Her choice. "This is so last minute." Tori waited to speak until she reached Jeremy's inner circle. "I can imagine what it's doing to your schedule." That Jeremy was stateside was a miracle. "Family duty." "Tell me about it," she said, with a touch of her glasses. "I'm feeling the same. Only not quite." Jeremy flashed flawless veneers. "I've been told I have a good shoulder and a sympathetic ear to match." "Do you?" "Decide for yourself," he suggested. "I really shouldn't. Really." Tori did not have to fake looking queasy. But a talk, getting things out, might help. Not inside, though. "It is hot and I'm feeling stifled," Jeremy said. A blaze crackled in the hearth behind Tori's future husband. Leave it to Aldrich to go over and above. Central heating suited Tori just fine. Open flame made her think too much of Finnish mountain lodges, and if she didn't stop sweating, she'd float away. Jeremy set his glass on the mantelpiece and took her elbow without asking. Cool. He was cool. His fingers were warm enough, but his heavy-lidded assessment spurred a snowflake of doubt. With family so high on the Aldrich list, Jeremy was likely wondering at Tori blowing off her elusive husband to remain downstairs without the pleasure of his company. Making bets of his own? The man was a shark who fed on females. Married or single made little difference. Tori could handle Jeremy in time, provided she had a wedding ring on her finger. But the interim was ticklish. Mistress was not part of Tori's plan. What is it? Jeremy asked when they stood on the balcony. I'm at that man's mercy. Every time I'm set on filing for divorce, abandonment being the chief complaint, he draws me in, he begs, pleads, and apologizes in such grand and public fashion, it's an embarrassment to say no. She searched the company and sighed, grateful for their nearness, even though she needed privacy. He does the same with Molly, and that's so unfair. A child deserves a solid foundation. Exactly. Not a parent who comes and goes as if. She stopped on purpose for effect. Theatrics was part of her job, instigating drama only to retreat at precisely the right time. Like withdrawing funds from a portfolio only to sink it into another. The skill was making it appear as if the investor was deciding, not being led. It's all right. Jeremy moved closer. The man oozed money and privilege. This is the reason she'd come, so why was she hesitating? You can trust me. She let her eyes do the talking, questioning more like it. 100%. I'm there for you, he said. Not something you're accustomed to, and that's understandable considering the circumstances. I've kept my distance, but now. He kissed her cheek, and despite Tori's lack of reaction, she saw futures. I'm supporting you for the partnership, Tori. I hope you know that. Partner? Doubt burst into delight. I did not know. That's why you're seeing fresh faces. Wonderful. Wow. The older Aldrich was seeking stability and spreading out potential losses, but that meant growth, too. A more aggressive approach, perhaps, if he were looking to bring in fresh blood. And you're not competing with me? I haven't earned that pleasure. Yet. Jeremy touched her bare shoulder. You're shivering. Take my coat. He slipped out of it to a sudden dusting of snow. Then the avalanche came. Chapter 6. Good evening. Edvin hailed from the window casing above the balcony. Edvin, Tori shrieked. What are you doing? He answered, what mountain climbers do, while glowering at Jeremy Aldrich, shucking snow like a disgruntled house cat. Edvin reared shoulders and took a purposeful step. More snow toppled on the couple, but mostly over the predator who thought to make a meal of the high and mighty, money-grasping, social-climbing Victoria Barclay. At least Victoria had an alliance in mind. Misguided, but not wholly immoral if Edvin considered she was a single parent. Not if Edvin spread the benefit of the doubt far and wide with a broad blade. The sharp side of that blade he'd reserved for Jeremy Aldrich. The worm. That predatory peck demanded an answer. From Victoria's husband, however temporary Edvin's position may be. Molly's mom may run Manhattan boardrooms, but she'd be in for a life lesson if she believed word one of that black heart's assurances that he supported her for a partnership. There was no partnership. The guy was lying or completely in the dark about the family business. Likely both. Not every man proposed marriage the morning after or before. Lies flowed like a machine-operated zipline before the fact, straight on to trussing a woman up like a Christmas goose. But goose or not, Victoria's agenda would make Molly miserable, no matter which parent won custody. Enjoying the party? He asked, delight curling his toes. We were. Victoria glared up behind black frames before she turned on the sweets for company. Jeremy, I'm so sorry. What can I say? Jeremy Aldrich shook out his frosty coat. There's nothing to say. Get down from there before you kill yourself. Victoria raked slender fingers through Aldrich's snow-caked hair. You may have a death wish, Edvin Finn, but a ghost story is not what anyone wants this Christmas. Not me, and not our child. And here, he said, I thought you cared. Victoria did care. He knew. Despite the dismissive grunt, she cared about her reputation, her rise to whatever moved her when passion failed. Edvin squeezed his eyes a moment and rode the clench of his heart. Passion for his child's mother had not died. That's better. Are you all right? What a shock. Victoria spoke in motherly tones while she dashed white from around Jeremy's neck, red with anger. Edvin guessed. I like the view. New York isn't the hole I thought it was. Not from this perspective, Edvin shouted. For attention, yes, but Jeremy left a speechless void. Colorful lights cast over the rolling white lawns reminded him of those in the North Country, only reversed, radiating up off the snow. Maybe I'll stay a while. Scout out a retreat where he could take Molly and Victoria, provided the latter could get over herself and this foolishness of vowing herself to a waste of flesh. The young Aldrich found his voice and croaked, You can't be up there. At least he knew competition when he saw it. Edvin took his full height and stretched arms over his head. Why not? That's not funny, snapped Victoria. She craned her head to a flattering 45-degree angle, adjusting as she stepped away from Aldrich to keep her spouse in sight. Come down. Apologize to our host and we'll talk. About saving our marriage? Do you mean it? Just come down. She took over the brushing of Jeremy's coat when he came to stand beside her. Aldrich Sr. is the reason I came, but if you want to talk, okay, said Edvin. Let Victoria swallow that candy cane. I'm unsure about my wife's career aspirations when we're already tapped with taking care of Molly. A baby girl needs her parents. Both of them. Molly has her mother, Victoria hissed. Now get down this instant. See what I have to put up with, Jeremy? I'm no child, not to the world. Yet when I come home to that woman, the imbalance is enough to drive a man to... Edvin teetered on the ledge to a duo of gasps. Or maybe Edvin towed another shower of freezing white flakes onto Jeremy to be cute. Victoria had called Edvin cute, the real Edvin. She tugged his beanie cap and tucked her hands in his pockets. Frustration tethered Edvin to the ledge. His going rogue for this acting job required a level of devilry he was unfamiliar with. But bland might be what Victoria preferred based on present company. What are you doing here, really? She asked. Her angry growl was better than the motherly cooing spread over Aldrich like hot maple syrup. Checking on my frozen bride. With that, Edvin jumped, landing as expected on both feet, impact zinging up both legs. It felt marvelous, natural. A smile spread across Edvin's face and cleansed away ill feeling. His wife needed work, though. Pinched lips was not her best look. If you need one, he said to Victoria, take my coat. Jeremy is obviously cold. She sneered and said, You're not funny, Edvin. Not at all. I'm not trying to be, darling. I saw you from our window, he said in all honesty, and whipped off his jacket. You know how I like to air a room before we bed down. Victoria pivoted away from the warmth he offered. Couldn't you use the stairs? I'm a seasoned climber, Victoria. The trip from our suite to this balcony is one I could have taken at 5 years old. And using the door, well, he stalled long enough to gain Jeremy's interest. I just couldn't. Not extreme enough? She cleared her throat. Well, there you have it, Molly's father showing his parenting skills, again. Jeremy rallied and said, I'm glad your child isn't here, Mr. Finn. Me too, Edvin said. I would hate to have my baby exposed to the sight of her mother in secret converse with a man not her husband. What would she think? Victoria's shifting brows cursed Edvin out. She accepted the jacket he laid over her shoulders, though, warmed by exertion and the reality that, despite everything, he cared. He would, even if Molly never existed. It wasn't the healthiest revelation, considering Victoria loathed him, but he'd proposed to her for a reason. That's better, he said. Thank you. Now could you please leave? She used that excess of civility he was coming to believe was her shield. Too bad Edvin didn't have one. He hovered near her neck, his lips a kiss away from breaking her first rule. He cursed beneath his breath. Victoria smelled so inviting, despite his disdain for her bathroom full of products. Strawberry, spice, who cared? And her skin would be so soft, he knew. Victoria clutched his jacket around her and said, "Please, we've had enough of a scene." Guests milled onto the balcony with curious stares. Aldrich reared his shoulders. "You've already made matters so very awkward, Finn. Do as the lady requests. She is your wife, after all." "I'll leave if my wife comes with me," said Edvin. "You know I can't sleep alone." "Precisely so," she answered. Her eyes gleamed. "However do you manage without me?" Edvin ground his teeth. "Victoria? No, don't explain. But since you need a keeper, I'll come upstairs. I don't have it in me to break your death to our child," said Victoria. "Please excuse us." Jeremy stood tall for the growing audience. Of course. Victoria, chin high, cast herself in the role of virtue on the edge, an edge Edvin had given her. Curse it. "We'll talk later," she whispered to Jeremy, "after children have gone to sleep." The uniformed head of the Aldrich household paled before Tori, tapping a pointed high heel. "Well," she said, stressing out subordinates seemed to be all she was good for these days. "There must be something. Anything." "I'm sorry," the butler answered haltingly, as if speaking cost some secret fee that demanded his last penny. "As I've already said, Miss Finn." "That's Mrs.," Edvin interjected. This after his failed attempt to corral her. Tori steadied herself to keep from laughing, maniacally. "The butler may address me however he likes, so long as we get that extra room," she added. "I tip very well, too." "That is immaterial, ma'am. I'll recheck room assignment." The servant scrolled through his iPad. Adrenaline pumping, Tori prevailed on the balcony. She had to now. The trio stood in the round marbled antechamber. Someone, Blair, had disappeared. Must have called for help before Tori stalked through the library, arms folded, disdain exploding any hopes of a husband and wife love fest. Forget her fear of being gauche. She'd scored big time despite Edvin's idiot display on the balcony, and he knew it. So why wasn't she reveling in victory? Why was she so... "That's the ticket. Look through everything again," she said to the butler. "Everything. I'm tipping you either way." Tori understood she needed distance. The witness of the medieval lady, presiding quietly in her illuminated manuscript, called Tori out. Public scenes may advance her cause, but fiery exchanges in close quarters, with no referee, may end badly. In a way that undid everything Tori strove to accomplish, since asking Blair to secure this fake mate. Edvin I captured her attention for a reason that freezing night in Finland. Why him among countless others? His lodge had hosted financial wizards from across the globe. That's why Tori had gone to Finland, not to roll in the snow and other places with a bearded mountain man. More than animal instinct drew Tori to Molly's father. There was a gentleness about her Edvin, and the happy fall that, when Tori considered it outside of her strict plan of action, was the best thing ever. The lying aftermath was Tori's fault, and Molly's father, that sweet Sasquatch, was likely wounded far deeper than Tori dare imagine. How could she have left him like she did? And left him completely in the dark about their beautiful baby girl? Was she that heartless, without feeling? The need to confess her sins to someone outside Blair who typically aided and abetted, stabbed at her. Blair wanted to call this whole farce off. Had Tori's PA been in Finland, Tori may well have stayed. At least a while. Meanwhile, this fake Edvin faked Tori out. Yes, both men had light eyes. Green, she affirmed with a cutting glance. The brick beside her assessed the antique volume. Both Edvins could scale Kilimanjaro and explore active lava flows unscathed. But that's where the similarity ended. Confusing the two men belonged to those who put confidence in outrageous coincidence, and the Santa Claus who orchestrated them. Edvin I would never lose his cool. Not like this guy who refused to do his job. That's what hooked her, though. The urge to bend this brash, arrogant, and fully capable male to her will was more exciting than... tripling her portfolio overnight. Much as Tori loved the tender attention of Edvin I, Tori wanted her hireling to break rule number 1, and 2, and 3, and any other line she drew. What was she thinking? Her actor husband likely never slept alone, but Tori did, despite the bets likely going down in the library. And so what? She was in control, more than capable of managing feelings. Jeremy's proclivity for spreading himself around made him the perfect stopgap to avoid what Tori did not want: attachments, emotions. Who needs them when a partnership of pure logic and financial gain would do? Oh my, that sounded really sick, and Tori needed that extra room stat. "I think we'll be sleeping together," whispered the imposter. Insinuation alone set her face aflame, at least for one night. Tori shrugged off his dress jacket and threw it. "Think again. And you?" She whirled on the butler who'd slipped away. "Oh no, I'm not done with you," she said, catching up with him in the hallway. "There's nothing, ma'am. I'm sorry. And I have other guests. We need another place for this man to sleep. A broom closet if you have it. Mr. Finn could use the couch in the library when it clears." She kept her voice low to counter a pump of boiling blood. The balcony with a plastic tablecloth as a tarp would do. He's accustomed to roughing it. The servant straightened his shoulders. Mrs. Finn. No, she refused to share her room. A seasoned butler, as I'm sure you are, is familiar with logistical necessities. Those needed to keep the peace. Flattery worked to get Sandra's assistant. There was no Susan. Off Tori's case. Tori tried to remember, but this butler was walking away. The Aldrich family has always bragged on the efficiency of their household. High praise that belongs to you, I'm guessing. "Excuse my wife," Edvin interrupted. He came up beside her but didn't touch. "The man knows his job, Victoria." "Yes, I'm aware," Victoria counted on it. "I'm merely recalling higher concepts. Even I need the occasional reminder of why I'm paid to do what I do." Her words corresponded with their arrival at the main staircase. Reputations are so valuable, something I'm sure has given our friend the help required to always do his best. The butler flushed and stammered. "Yes, well, I'm certain you understand our situation." She lowered her glasses and glared over the frames. "Difficult as it may be, but you can't tell me there is nowhere else in this expansive estate that a man can sleep. Tori may not be an actress by trade, but 4 years of making things up had its benefit. We'd have to do some shuffling, Mrs. Finn, but I'm sure we could accommodate you. Mr. Finn would have to move upstairs with the staff." The staff? Aldrich Sr., wheeled in with a muffler of checked wool and a matching lap blanket, shook his head. "Don't be ridiculous, Tori. Mr. Finn has a room. With his lawfully wedded wife. You can't shut a man out at Christmas." "Yes, it's Christmas, Victoria. Have a heart. We owe it to Molly to make this weekend count," Edvin said before she could respond. At least Stokes, the butler, whose reputation prevented the need for names, was off the hot seat. "We can discuss the partnership Jeremy mentioned after the holidays." "The partnership? He mentioned that?" Stan nodded sagely and glanced at the servant behind the wheelchair. "Find my grandson, Louis, and tell him we need to speak." "Oh, go lightly," Tori pleaded. For herself or Jeremy, Edvin had to wonder. Jeremy has come home to help you, not just for the holidays, and he's a team player. The doubles tennis type, absolutely. Edvin could talk the talk, especially with Victoria's lower lip doing that delightful curl. He couldn't help but let my wife in on the news. His support for her as partner. Not that you've decided. Stan lobbed a beetled expression straight at Victoria. "No, I haven't." "Of course not. The vetting was barely begun." Victoria swallowed. "My grandson should know that. Families can be tricky, and I'm sure Jeremy understands. And I'm sure you and your husband can work out whatever kinks there are upstairs. You're due to tour my stables at 7 a.m. sharp. That means you'll need some sleep. Be sure she gets some, he said to Edvin, who was wholly undecided. Tired was a matter of perspective when the motive for staying awake came in such a sumptuous package. Victoria's anger was one mountain he'd be happy to climb. Chapter 7. Be sure she gets some, Tori muttered, silently of course. Men were such a bother, even the older ones apparently. She had to fix this, now. You don't understand, she said. My husband and I need another room. It'll be better that way. Blair should have made that contingency plan. There has to be something. Something wrong? Aldrich huffed. There wouldn't be if her boss insisted the butler stop raising obstacles or insist she sleep with one. Please, she said. She engaged the soft voice she reserved for Molly when the diligent PA with no name and a mind to trounce over Tori's failed partnership appeared in the vestibule. So much for taking things down a notch. I can explain later. You'll explain now, Tori, but not here. Stan Aldrich poked a button on his wheelchair. The motorized chair lurched forward, Aldrich lifting a veiny hand. Tori followed, vindicated despite Edvin's speculative scowl. At least she had a stay of execution. But what to say? The three-person parade, Aldrich gliding, Tori stepping lightly in swirling green skirt, and the actor finally following her lead, ended in Aldrich's office. Revealed when Edvin rushed ahead to open the door like the gallant knight she did not need him to be. What a ham. Jeremy should be here, attempting to protect and defend. His kiss held far more than friendly support despite its leaving Tori making unfavorable comparisons. More ceiling-high bookcases loomed ahead with a bounty of fun snapshots lining flat surfaces. Forget family. Yates and Aldrich featured in each frame. A bromance if ever there were. Photos of the two friends splattered the room. Mountain peaks, snow-coated yurts, and dueling speedboats provided the backdrop. The two men were thrill-seekers. Like the daredevil balcony climber Tori must avoid. A wild hare is the last thing she needed, especially since she wanted one. Cringe. With his jacket slung over one shoulder, her rent-a-man stood sentry like a miscast lamb awaiting sacrifice. His or hers. Green eyes, over-wide and roaming, fixed on her as she passed inside the office. What could this guy possibly gain by tanking this weekend for her? What could she gain by sharing a room with him? Stop it, she told herself before answers happened. Give us a minute, she grunted. Her shivers needed no encouragement. Aldrich barked, Get in here, both of you, and with such force that Tori nearly tripped over the carpet. Edvin closed the door behind himself quietly and scooted across the room. He settled beside Tori, his muscled arm bumping her shoulder where she stood like a schoolgirl, called out for disrupting class. Awareness zinged through flesh and bone. Anger or excitement? She asked herself, yet her husband probably knew which, or would insist he was right until he got his way. A dose of spiced cologne snaked its way to her nostrils. Her upper lip twitched, but she refused to dab the moisture mustache she felt forming. The ideas taking shape in the heated brain beside her were something else. What was he thinking? What mischief would flow from the waking volcano? She felt like knocking him flat. The heat-seeking hand Edvin tippled up her spine set her to trembling, and he had to know that a slap would only reflect poorly on her. So she sidestepped and filled her lungs to clear the haze of cologne, and desperation, her only excuse. Now, tell me why, precisely, you wish to make a public spectacle of ineptitude. Aldrich demanded answers after he'd rotated his wheelchair. Why after all this time? She stammered, Excuse me? You're being watched, Tori. The old man flatlined her with condescension. Watched by those who bought the package of home and office perfectly balanced. The supportive and indulgent wife, a doting mother, the temptress with claws to protect and defend. Tori said, "No, temptress is not what she wanted to be. You're a highly passionate woman despite the cool exterior that fools nobody." Aldrich's brows rose along with the wad of guilt threatening to choke her out. Decided notes of humiliation seasoned the mix, and she braced her knees for impact. "Tori, you're the Wonder Woman of high finance who can do it all. For herself and those clients smart enough to get over themselves. That's who I need this weekend." "I'm flattered, but I'm not that." She wasn't. Edvin cleared his throat. "I disagree." He would. "Agree or disagree, I'd prefer my Wall Street warhammer appear composed and capable. Futures are not fixed, Tori, even though the appearance of such is exactly what our business relies on. Or are you determined to bring down Yates Aldrich with you?" Tori blinked once, twice, and despite her black-framed facade, she felt entirely exposed. Vulnerable, like the contents of a seal-a-meal bag with a traitorous leak. The suspect look on Aldrich's pruned face confirmed it. "Mr. Aldrich, Stan, I appreciate your confidence. It's just..." "It's late." Impatience radiated from the chair. Whatever the issue, it's my fault," Edvin interjected, and Tori's palms itched. He'd probably like a slap, now, or pretend he did. "I'll sleep with the staff," Victoria said. She tugged her bangs and chewed her lip. But there it was. "My first and maybe last executive decision. I snore horribly, though, like a moose." She tipped her head toward the well-racked animal that had given its all for sport. Just like she refused to do. "Edvin needs rest." Stan laughed. "And my staff doesn't?" "Victoria is upset, and understandably so, Mr. Aldrich. If I were home with my wife and child, as I ought to be, there'd be no problem." "And no promotion," Tori grumbled under her breath. "No life outside catering to the massive ego dragging her through a nightmare without benefit of sleep. Sleep she wouldn't get if she let him sleep anywhere near her." Her husband for hire threaded fingers through hers, laying waste to ground rules. "I'll be here to help you, Victoria, at home and with Molly, throughout the season this time. With Stan, Mr. Aldrich bearing witness, and we'll find a workaround for your snoring." "Will you stay through the summer?" asked the old man. "Team-building exercises aren't what they used to be." Neither was Tori's attempt to take the hit. A confession of weakness typically put Aldrich in her corner. Not this time. Her confidence plummeted, and there was nobody to drag her from the crevasse. No Blair, no Molly. How could Tori solicit a partner invitation when securing a room seemed impossible? Impossible like landing the somewhat lecherous client Tori had thrown Sandra's way. Tori attempted to fix her coworker's name in her brain. A very married woman, if Tori recalled right. But some things Tori refused to do, or even think about. Not even for promotion. Being hit on nonstop was a no-go for Tori. Whatever Sandra did or didn't do to meet her bottom line was her business. Meanwhile, Tori longed to jump Edvin's bones, for kicks or some attempt at closure via Edvin's surrogate. She did not know, but did that matter? The fake Edvin peeked her way, and Tori blushed. And why not? Her baby's father had let Tori disappear while this stranger seemed intent on sticking around, and pinging buttons she never knew she had. "So you'll be here through summer?" Stan Aldrich sounded like a child. Edvin stroked a hand down the back of his head while his green eyes took a split-second detour to Tori before fixing on Stan. "Yes, we can work out a parachute experience you'll never forget. Wheelchairs can be worked around." "Now there, you see? It's heartening that one of you wants to work things out." Aldrich spun his chair Tori's way. "Give your husband the time of day, Victoria. A forgiving kiss under the mistletoe before the weekend is over should change any untoward attitudes. Passion is as passion does. The same applies to Jeremy, no? He's young and impulsive. She crouched to reposition the old man's blanket over his legs, along with her own attitude. Passionate anything is not what she needed, no matter how much her lip twitched. Given time and better company, he'll imitate your example. Steady, reliable, focused on taking Yates Aldrich into the next generation in a matter to make you proud. Yes, well, we'll see, he answered with a hard swallow. Tori shook her head. Jeremy is your flesh and blood, Stan, your grandson. You can't lose hope. Hope? Defeated fit the old man's distant stare. Yes, blood is blood, and perception is everything, like you said. Believe it, and Jeremy will turn around. Family is forever, and I'm sure. Edvin brushed her nape, and she flung him an angry look, brows bunched only to soften. Melt, more like it. His half-lidded eyes begged questions that made her question herself. What had she done to Molly's blood? The real Edvin, mountain man, adventurer, was missing the greatest adventure of life, raising his own child. Let it alone, advised Edvin, and with a somberness that shook her. It's all right. Victoria is sure of many things, and that's as it should be. It goes over well with clients, Aldrich grumbled. But my relationship with Jeremy is my own. I doubt you'd welcome interference with young Molly. That pulled her attention back. Sir. She gripped his chair to steady herself. The old man said, Now you understand, and so do I. She must have paled 3 shades or more. What did her boss understand? About single motherhood, her sham marriage, her plan to land Jeremy. Good night. Aldrich's exhausted inventory moved from Tori to his blanket and back up. She relinquished her hold on the woolly fabric. I'll expect mended fences, however you manage it. Talk about divorce all night, but during the day, maintain until you're on your own time. If you care anything for Molly. I'll speak with you later about team building, Mr. Finn. His continued mention of Molly throttled Tori's heart while Aldrich's chair just about ran her over. She couldn't care less about team building, but stood and stared. Edvin cleared the way for her boss. Wow. She'd always imagined grandparents to be more forgiving than parents. Wrong-o. But Stan Aldrich's firm chin had trembled enough for him to vacate the premises and make Tori question. What misery was going on outside her own drama? Astrid's champagne salute and Blair's inattention took on new meaning and lent Tori the focus to see past Finnish misfires. Almost. Whatever was going on, she suspected this actor's involvement. He was too good at being rotten. Let it alone? Why? She owed it to herself and Aldrich to find out, if only for Molly's sake. Edvin meant what he said. He would remain through the season, and however long it took for Tori to admit she had feelings for him, then and now. She may have walked away from the old Edvin, but this new and improved version had an overdrive option she needed to try. He recognized the sheen on her upper lip and knew precisely what it meant. She had no interest in Jeremy Aldrich outside of an easy climb, what she believed would be easy. But how pleasant would it be to marry someone while having feels for someone else? The kind that didn't fade. Edvin had tried suppression techniques. Snow showers failed epically in the aftermath of Victoria's sneaking away from Santa Claus Village. His attempt to replace her was another fail. Discovering Molly had been his biggest blessing. Edvin had the chance to be the parent he'd never had and win the only woman who'd held his interest long enough to make him angry. When she whipped off her glasses and flashed him a dose of fretful blue eyes trying to play it cool, he felt anything but. Cut the mooning, she said. You're with me tonight. With you? On the chaise. You're staying, through Sunday, she qualified. The path to divorce is clear, so we just have to walk it. He let satisfaction take shape in the wicked grin she deserved. You're welcome. You're not. A wrinkly nose never looked so cute. Then she wrestled the door shut and said, I'm still not happy with you. A lie. Edvin suspected. That bit about snoring, not so much. It was my pressing for reconciliation that got Aldrich to mention working this out. Whatever it is, I'm short on details. Rule number 2. No personal questions. Yes, I remember. Like you remembered Rule 1 before you bulldozed it 3 times? I was gentle. No touching. Her precise enunciation came off like a dare. Incentivize that guideline. Edvin quirked his lips, and I may have better recall. Her cheeks flamed right along with the cleavage she displayed for Jeremy's benefit. And how do you propose we go about measuring your resistance? My ability to withstand temptation. Edvin wasn't afraid to say it, and you are that. Oh, please. That's the idea, and I respond to carrots, Mrs. Finn, and a fuller explanation of what it is I'm expected to do, or not do. His perplexed expression hid nothing, and they both knew it. They both knew she welcomed his touching, too, more so than she'd ever admit willingly. Try not trolling my boss for the chance to play team builder. I was following his conversation. If that's not what you want. Edvin let his words drop along with his shoulders and moved into kissing range. Close enough to sense the tooth-grinding discomfort which she could not hide behind flattened lips. What I want? You actually care? I understand your guidelines prevent me questioning you, but my role has expanded beyond expectation and, for your own good and young Molly's, you do well to keep me informed. Fully, he said. Stay tuned and leave my daughter out of it. She left him standing there in favor of a glitter-dusted Christmas tree made entirely of red poinsettia in the vestibule outside the office. You, stop, she called to a passing maid. Easy, Edvin said, feeling genuinely sorry for the woman. Pillows, blankets. If you're staying, that means rearranging, Victoria hissed over a bare shoulder. I require a minimum of 6 pillows. 6? Whatever for? Try giving birth and get back to me, said Tori with emphasis. This man had no clue about pregnancy or the difficulties Tori experienced during hers. The aftermath of orthopedic issues made her feel ages old, anything but sexy. He gives me a hard time all the time, she said to the maid. Tori wasn't about to roll over. If she made Edvin angry enough, perhaps he'd stop looking at her like the carrots that supposedly inspired him. He could satisfy appetites with the ever-ready Astrid. I was only teasing, he said. A poor excuse, and he knew it. Go upstairs, Victoria, and I'll make sure you get your pillows. All 6, or a dozen if you like. Tori took the kindness in stride. Yes, but only 6. She instructed to reassert herself. I have to touch base with Blair. But his eyes popped, and so did the maid's. Be a good boy, I'll be right up. She patted his cheek. Or don't you trust me by myself? Chapter 8. Trust her? Why should Edvin trust Victoria Barclay? The last time he'd left Victoria by herself, she'd fled his bedroom, ditched Santa Claus Village, and took a swift sleigh in the opposite direction of the wedding ceremony she'd let him arrange. Uncool, cowardly, and... was it possible? Did Victoria doubt herself? Trust herself? The mainstay of Yates Aldrich LLC still believed she needed to marry into money. Money that wasn't there, like the love and caring she'd never eke out of Jeremy. Dislike aside, Edvin had to give Jeremy credit for self-awareness. He made no pretense of being anything other than a snake. Victoria made the mistake of considering herself a charmer. But even Lohi did not cast spells upon herself, and the passionate woman Edvin remembered would require more than spreadsheets and corporate bonuses, even if her signature graced the bottom of every check. The imprint of her eager lips was still fresh in his mind. Edvin set angry eyes upon her, retreating in triumph. green sequins winking like fishing lures. Yet here he was, with futures in the balance, trailing a maid upstairs while his weekend wife, the woman all of him still wanted, malingered below with mischief in her eyes. What was she planning? Another play for Jeremy? Round 2 with Stan Aldrich? Would Victoria demand Blair's resignation for hiring someone who could meet the physical demands of his current job, but failed to follow her rules? Edvin would like to know what rules Victoria engaged in her private life. No touching, no personal questions, no living. That was no future for Molly. Victoria tippled her fingers in a fake wave and said, "Night-night, darling. Go to sleep if you must. I know how exhausted you are, and I could be longer than I thought." He scowled down, gripping the stair rail when Jeremy Aldrich strolled into view. Suave, dressed in Italian casual wear, and convinced that the world belonged to him. "Be any longer than is strictly necessary," Edvin called, "and you know I'll round you up. I can't sleep alone." What Jeremy would say when he learned about Edvin buying out Yates Aldrich had yet to be seen, and Edvin looked forward to it. The paling of that smug face was only an appetizer. "Neither can I," Victoria answered, then licked her teeth and disappeared with Jeremy. The man was window dressing, a snail shell, an evacuated beetle carapace, bright and shiny with nothing inside. Is that what Victoria wanted? A showpiece? Someone who'd attach himself to her as if she were winner's purse? Ridden as far as opportunity provided, only to be set out to pasture when he sniffed younger or greener pastures. Shivers unlike anything ice could produce ripped up Edvin's spine and moved his muscled shoulders with the urge to tear something apart, slowly. A gentle touch was unexpected. "I can set up your room however you'd like, Mr. Finn," the maid suggested. Her sympathetic expression couldn't be helped, he imagined. She likely saw a lot in a house like this, during parties like this one. "Thank you." He stalled and met her concerned expression with a compassionate one. "Anna, not that you have to remember. Go. Follow your wife as well you should, Mr. Jeremy." Not trustworthy? It didn't take a mind reader. With my daughters, no, I will say that much. Not that I'm implying anything. Edvin shouldn't either, not even in thought. Victoria had been on her own long before she had left him, free and clear of male attachments, much thanks to the rocky upbringing she'd told Edvin all about. Her story of strength and perseverance in the face of horrible parenting moved him. He'd wanted to share, and maybe Edvin should have. If he had been forthcoming about himself, perhaps Victoria would have married him. But his name and money may have become a barrier between them. A niggling doubt that would leave them both wondering if it was really love or love of something else. Having billions did things to people, and not all good. Still, as the maid gathered supplies from a walk-in closet, he knew Victoria could have landed a proper husband long before now. A boyfriend, at least. Someone to fill in so she wouldn't have to hire a stranger for the weekend. If Victoria was putting herself out there with Jeremy, maybe Edvin was partly to blame. His wham-bam marriage proposal was too much too soon. He swiped his clammy neck, and for once debated. Should he follow Victoria? Trust her? His would-be wife could hang by her own device. He'd sue for full custody if Victoria made a spectacle of chasing Jeremy Aldrich this weekend. Vindictive? Yes. Molly was blessed with a loving mother, but something was up with Jeremy Aldrich. "I'm sure you meant well, Anna. Thank you again." He hurried to add, having taken too long to respond. The maid took a risk in speaking out against an Aldrich. "Anything to help, Mr. Finn. I understand what it means to be parted from family." "Tell me," he said, over the ash in his throat. It would be good to get out of himself. "My husband, before he took a position here in New York, had to travel to support our family. Mistakes can happen. It's hard for everyone, but no reason. No reason to let a marriage go. Thank you for saying so. We're not of the same class. She lifted her chin. But people are people, Mr. Finn. Whatever you need, please call on me. I'm glad you said that. Hope stiffened his spine. My wife won't be lingering below stairs, I'm sure. Edvin wanted to be sure. Meanwhile, he imagined how to win Victoria, or at least get her to open up and let him inside. He ached for recognition and some explanation of why she left Santa Claus Village without telling him. But maybe he'd been gone too long in finding out why. His fault again. That pleases me, Mr. Finn. The maid's brows rose. You and your wife make a lovely couple. I agree, but I need your help, Anna. Jeremy Aldrich ran a quick finger between his neck and collar as he and Tori cleared the searing green thunderbolts Edvin threw down from the stairs. Is your husband hardwired to fight you, Tori? Or fight for you? Her escort asked. The quavering voice betrayed his sleek lift of brows. He's not Thor, and he's not that concerned, she assured. Give him 10 minutes. She'd take 20 minutes minimum, and a snow shower if she could have it. The sarcasm she intended to hammer home Edvin's changeable nature in her mind had the opposite effect on her. Dynamic men always intrigued her. So did her fake mate's penchant for overacting. It felt like flirting. Maybe she wanted it to be flirting. Desperate and beyond shame. Tori's hummingbird heart hammered. Jeremy, despite his initial pleasure at discovering her in the foyer, seemed focused on keeping himself out of the hospital. A legitimate concern as he suggested they head to the kitchen, somewhere private. With Tori second-guessing her plan to land Jeremy Aldrich, and who wouldn't with his grandfather having expressed such profound displeasure, she wanted to blow him off. Astrid is who she wanted to see. The eager accountant had the scoop on financials, futures most likely, and the lowdown on Jeremy Aldrich. What Tori believed to be flirtation between the heir and the redhead may be a power-over situation. Anything was possible. But Tori had no desire for a Finnish firestorm to crush the wayward grandson. Or maybe she did. Her toes tingled at the thought of a brawl. The rush of instinct and misplaced pleasure reminded her how predictably dangerous, unpredictable could be. Feelings were not the best foundations, and Tori had no intention of raising Molly to delight in ego-driven competition. At least there'd be fewer witnesses if Edvin slipped out of his stall and decked Jeremy in the kitchen. Tori evaded further talk with a simple headshake. Jeremy, watching and awaiting opportunity, guided her deeper inside dim passages, those reserved for staff and family. How many others had he led this way? To benefit from the supportive shoulder and sympathetic ear he'd offered her on the balcony. Tori didn't feel like faking romantic interest or complaining about Edvin, so she skipped ahead through the servants' hall, crossing her arms to warm her bare shoulders. Sturdy enough, but Blair was right. Her idea to bag Jeremy Aldrich was crazy. Alpha-muscled and rough around the edges types would always attract Tori. Men who'd collar on the garbage, while other guys would pretend to like to get their way from a submissive position. Not so attractive. Honesty is what she needed, starting with herself. Convenient or not, she liked the mountain-sized tease who pressed her buttons and boundaries since he'd shown up anything but drunk. Her husband for hire was boorish, though. He fought her without reason, and yet, when he explained his motives, he seemed genuinely concerned with the overall success of her project. His performance, however good, and it was that, would indicate ulterior motives. She relived his passion-packed kiss every time he touched her. Sweet Santa Claus. She'd almost pay Edvin to break rules if she played by different ones. Yet something was going on. His green eyes were too cutting, and at all the right moments. If she didn't know better, she'd believe Molly's dad had left his haven to call her out. Ridiculous. Yet her fake mate, working for Stan, the former thrill-seeker, was a real possibility. Had Blair done something outside of getting a boyfriend? A reasonable suspicion, considering Blair wasn't herself tonight, and neither was Tori. Her skin itched for Edvin to chase her down, demand that she come upstairs and make a scene, like she'd wished the real Edvin hadn't let her disappear. Maybe Blair added to the script Tori outlined, an element that would have Tori reassess her solution of a loveless marriage. Her assistant's pushing never felt so humiliating. Tori's upper lip twitched, beads of sweat forming just thinking of Edvin, both of them. The kitchen lay ahead, awash in subdued canned lighting. Here we are, alone at last. Jeremy's pleasant tenor unsettled her, though not in a good way. Midnight snacks and no interruptions for at least a few hours. You're sure of the cook's schedule? I grew up here, so yes. More likely he played here, after dark in the servant section of the house, and well beyond the age of plastic action figures. Tori forced the semblance of a smile. Why had she said she didn't sleep alone? The tiled great space breaking off the hall seemed too small somehow. It was filled with ovens, fruit and nut baskets, and pink marble surfaces that must have been overrun with all manner of food minutes before. Still, the kitchen shone. It smelled of fresh lemons, as if nobody had used it. Maybe it was the subdued lighting making Tori feel closed in. The recessed fixtures, strategically placed in those areas where darkness may present a danger, provided only enough glow to keep family and staff from bumping into sharp edges. Her host's attempt to press Tori into a corner formed by the stylized tiles was not the relationship she wanted. Not at all. Jeremy's failure to flick on additional lights was another red flag. Her throat closed and her mind, swamped by a rush of fight or flight, threatened to go ape. That's monkey brain, but Tori had put herself in this position. You're so quiet, said Jeremy. I thought you needed to talk. Space. That's what I need most. A moment's real peace. Like she'd get any. And you knew I'd provide it. How very flattering. When he touched the small of her back, she startled. Snow fell outside the picture windows, but without the colored accents she'd seen outside her bedroom. But know this, said Jeremy. That mountain you married won't roll over, Tori. Not after what you've let him do. I'm unsure what you mean. Tori fingered her bangs off her forehead. What has he done to me? I'm responsible for my own choices, foolish and otherwise. It's Molly who concerns me. It should be now, and always. A patronizing sigh blew from Jeremy's plumped lips. Forgiving him already? You're too good. Am I? She asked herself. I've been at Yates Aldrich for less than 30 days, and even without Finn's mountain goat routine, I could see you're a woman who needs more than what she's getting. Far more. Tori gulped and said, It's my fault. Rushing into romance comes with consequences. Hint, hint. Your husband using you like a bank as the only adult in your marriage is unfair. Jeremy trailed a hand down her bare arm. If not to you, then for Molly, surely. Treating me like a bank? The fine hairs on Tori's arm and everywhere else screamed danger. She refused to discuss Molly, but hoped money talk would divert him. Jeremy had no cause to think her husband, fake or otherwise, was living off of her. Not unless he'd spoken with Astrid, who seemed intent to learn all she could about Molly. But Jeremy may reveal something of his own issues, and sources, if Tori stuck with money talk. She owed it to Yates Aldrich to find out whatever she could with Jeremy playing executive and his grandfather seeking someone to share the potential fallout via partnership. Jeremy leaned in, all head and heavy breathing. There's no need to pretend, Tori. Not for me. Your marriage is a sham. A sham? No true marriage, he growled. Tori gasped. Did Jeremy know the Edvin upstairs was fake? Hired for the weekend and hamming it up? That was paranoia talking. That and guilt. but the reference to Tori being a ready supply of cash was still out of place. "Please, Jeremy, I appreciate your kindness, but really," she stammered. She needed to know where he got his information, if he was referring to her hiring the man upstairs, and how she could stem the heat, making her cheeks transform into supernovas. There was no Edvin Finn outside the figment she'd created in the aftermath of Molly's biological father. "What do you mean?" she asked with a lift of chin. Blair's goad, "You're already exposed," rang between Tori's pounding temples. "I mean that you're unaccustomed to a man standing by you, putting your concerns, your needs first," he said. Jeremy yanked her close, hands cupped around her hips. "That's what I mean." Then he took off her glasses and set them on the counter. She said, "I need those," instead of screaming. "Not with me. Such beautiful eyes must be seen, without filters," Jeremy breathed. "I'd have given Molly my last name." Tori meant to eliminate complications in her life by snagging a live placeholder, not some column for her to cling to, and not a misogynist Lothario who obviously did not know how to read women. "What's the tension between you and your grandfather all about?" she asked. He deserved a full frontal attack. "Tension?" He moved his mouth toward her shoulder, and Tori wriggled sideways to avoid contact. "Did my grandfather say something you're not telling me? I shared the partnership news with you, and turnabout is only fair." "Just a feeling. I'm only asking because I'm concerned," said Tori, "about revealing too much in her personal life. Jeremy may be fishing in the same fashion that Astrid had in Tori's office. He may know nothing outside the marital discord Tori paid to put on display. Jeremy, a man with no scruples, would be the kind to press her for money, though, to keep quiet about Molly's father." "Please," she wriggled free, her skin stained. "Rushing things has already caused me enough grief. Molly, too." That was true, even if her daughter was too young to realize it. Jeremy let her go, but not too far. He invaded her space again. The private line she wished she'd drawn more firmly. "I'm concerned about you," he said. "You don't have to be." He pushed her glasses out of reach. "No. Astrid in accounting may have mentioned that you're covering Molly on everything. Medical, dental, vision, nanny care, and life insurance. I know you can manage well enough on your salary." "I manage. Financially." Jeremy chucked her chin, then excused himself to the fridge and extracted a chilled bottle of champagne. Convenient. The two frosted flutes sporting holiday ribbons sure were. But that's not my point. Tori said, "It's late," and worried her bangs. But then she attempted to leave the kitchen. Jeremy blocked her. "It's never too late, Tori. But it's precisely that attitude that's left you alone far too long." Chapter 9. Edvin had seen enough. He spun in the entry after spying on Victoria and Jeremy and said, "Tell my wife, if you would, that I need her upstairs. Now." He had not seen the redhead taking his instruction prior to turning around, but he heard the click, click, click of heels. The smug look twitching the woman's perfectly penciled lips at the sight of a sulking Edvin Finn and a compromised Victoria mixed perfectly with her noxious perfume. Spicy and icy, not in a good way. Muted voices from inside the kitchen explained the why behind Edvin's request. "It is late," the woman said while he lingered. "I was on my way to the kitchen for a nibble, though." "Me too. At least I was," Edvin lied. He was getting sick of that, lying, with the staff, with Victoria, and with himself. Stan Aldrich was right. Forget a prize mare. Edvin would not walk away from Victoria. What man would? She played it cool and tough and emotionless to contain herself, to provide the support she needed to waylay the feelings, the humanity, that scared her more than any sheer rock face. He was the fool who'd let her go, afraid of the challenge she presented to come out of hiding. Not today. Edvin wanted his baby's mother with every ounce of muscle he'd trained to do without. His heart muscle took this farce the hardest. Would Victoria welcome him when she discovered who he was? Or would she reject him again? A monk he was not, at least not in her presence. He retreated down the hallway at a lazy pace. Recollection of soft skin and Victoria's even softer side whipped him like fresh-falling snow in cyclone winds. Each snowflake, the sensations powered through him, flamed on contact. His craving ache spiraled tighter and tighter with every turn. His hands clenched right along with the tensions in his neck. His kissing Victoria had awakened both of them, he knew. It had to be true. She was proud, though, like Stan said. He was, too. Edvin admitted when the woman called in a hushed voice. Why don't we both go ahead? Nobody will read you the riot act. Not at this hour. That's okay. You sure? A quick look in the fridge? My appetite's gone. What he hungered for wasn't in a refrigerator, despite the frosty reception Victoria would give him. But Frosty appealed to him now, challenged him in ways he wanted to meet. Maybe it was Victoria's rejection that spurred him on. Looks only went so far. The redhead in the black body stocking dress, attractive enough, seemed more comical than anything. Just give Victoria the message, he asked. Thank you. And I'm sorry he apologized for his disparaging thoughts. Come on, a big buck like you? I'll fix you a plate, she offered. Unless that's what Tori's doing with Jeremy. What Victoria was doing and with whom was none of this woman's business, although she'd make it so if Edvin recognized the predatory look beneath the mascara lashes. Lashes doing their best to stoke him into what kind of fury he had yet to decide. We could hang out in the library until the kitchen clears, she suggested. Talk. It can't be easy being married to a woman who, I'm sorry, doesn't seem to welcome you when you're home. She moved a hand toward his. Your first idea is best. Cards on the table. He glared her hand away. Let's go get what we want to eat before the good stuff is gone. Well, okay then. The little black dress moved to link arms with him. Edvin cranked his elbow and ignored the huff that would make a gentleman blush. He wasn't gentle, not anymore. Victoria, he bellowed, crashing into the kitchen, backhanding the door in a way he hoped would elicit more gossip. Jeremy jumped like the rabbit he was. Victoria had the nerve to look shocked at his playing the part she wanted. Edvin? His name tumbled past her glossy pout. Yes, your husband. Time for bed, he said. Let her demand a divorce here and now if she wanted one. His behavior provided grounds, and with 2 witnesses. Victoria's wide eyes darted from one to the other observer, then fixed on Edvin. She gulped, and he went berserk. Almost. Finn's weren't Vikings, but his blood caught fire, and so did Victoria's, judging from the blush that turned her pale skin a deep rose. It was hard to tell in the dim light, but he'd happily take her somewhere that he could study her up close. Nothing to say? He pressed. She cleared her thought. Jeremy and I were talking. Well, we won't be. Edvin took the kitchen in 3 strides, then bent low enough to tip Victoria off her feet. One arm beneath her knees, the other supporting her slim torso, and they were off. Shall I call security? Jeremy asked. Only if you want to start something, Edvin growled. But I'll end it. Aldrich and you. Victoria glowered at Edvin's menacing spread of teeth. Power irradiated the muscles pressing her against the whole of him. Desire, the need for full disclosure, made even more potent for the depths of his mesmerizing eyes, crackled between them. Confusion, too. Edvin, a stranger playing a part, tagged her without a single word as she filled her lungs with the intoxicating aroma of alpha male. She wasn't a Wall Street wonder, but a desolate, barren soul who'd taken a wrong turn for fear of regrets. Her mouth filled with nothing but bitter and deadly. Not the sample she wanted for Molly, and not what Tori wanted for herself. But what to do? Tori's fake mate deserved an Oscar. He toggled her upward, strong hands and firm fingers seeking a better hold as the feuding couple exited the kitchen. But this wasn't a film, and Tori was no mountain. She feigned anger for self-preservation as Edvin whipped her through corridors and up the stairs. She had little defense as her veins plumped with estrogen-dense blood and the stark reality that she, Victoria Barkley, workhorse, single mom, avowed celibate, wanted this man. But to what purpose? She must think and think clearly. What are you doing? She ground out. Making a spectacle that will demand a divorce. He brushed her temple with unnerving gentleness, his lips like butterflies. Phineas Hill and his wife Liz, dressed in matching his and her robes, peeked outside their suite. Both were owl-eyed and looking as if they only lacked for a bag of popcorn. "Isn't that what we're here for?" whispered the man whose real name Tori didn't know. She hadn't even asked. "I hired you to make it plain that we made the biggest mistake of our lives attempting to build a family on a foundation of shared..." "Do I have to say it?" "Yes," she sighed. "That is, no. You don't have to say anything. Carry on. You're doing a fantastic job of making the inevitable split easy to explain." That cooled him off. His shoulders seemed to crumble while a silent groan, a mute rise and fall of his magnificent chest, stung her. Tori swallowed ash. 3 more giant strides and there was no hallway left to stall the inevitable. Sharing a room with Edvin Finn, or whoever it was, making her blood fly like the Polar Express, was her only option. What did Santa Claus have in store, behind closed doors? The rims of her eyes stung, and she had only herself to blame. "Are you really after Jeremy Aldrich?" asked Edvin. "Are you planning to marry him or nothing? What I plan for Mr. Aldrich is none of your concern," she said, with a sputtering vestige of authority. Her rules had been ridiculous, considering Tori ached for him to break both. But no, I will not marry him. Or date him, or be alone with him, or think of him. Edvin hadn't added that last part, but his tone of voice and protective shudder had Tori wishing he had. Edvin Finn filled her head and heart. Hungry green eyes feasted on her smorgasbord self, everything Tori denied but freely offered, if not by word, then by a desire she had no desire to feel. The sheen previously limited to her upper lip covered her head to toe. She could slip out of her dress so easily, too easily. But mammoth-sized determination and more muscle than she dared consider as Edvin bobbled her up, then down, refused to allow it. "Please, I can stand on my own. Nobody's watching and, while I understand why you broke the rules, and I do, it's best that we uphold them. For both our sakes," she said. "I'm not in any danger." "Neither am I," she said as he wriggled her around and opened the door to their room. "It's just... what's this?" Her lungs filled even as her eyes rounded. Edvin held Tori tighter, his forearms like iron bands and a fast track to recalling the other Edvin she'd left behind. If only the 2 men were the same person. How things might be different. Different like the cream and crimson rose petals perfuming the quilt, the chaise, and gracing costly carpets. The roses and the effort behind them forced Tori to breathe deeply, much like the nest of pillows awaiting on her queen-sized bed. A neatly folded mattress made of blankets and more pillows took the place of the footboard bench. Turned out for a loyal husband who, to make way for his wife, would remain in the same room, but not press for intimacy. "Why not sleep on the chaise?" she stammered, grasping for some critique to keep her from her gushing. "Too small." "Good point," although he still held her tight. "What are you doing now?" She considered slapping the muscled chest that had driven her wild since she'd first crashed against it, hours ago when he kissed her in the snow and demanded answers. The mountain remained silent. You'll get another job out of this, don't worry. What I need is a good night's rest, she said. You probably do too after so much temptation. He moved toward the bed. Exertion. It's been a long day and you've put on quite the performance. Tori had delivered in that same department too. The whirlpool of reactions, sensations, and instincts spinning her senseless were part of a performance well done. Hollywood actors swapped partners for a reason. The additional props of pillows and rose petals in her bedroom, decidedly off camera, made Tori's insides sweat. But Molly, Tori's only love and responsibility, needed her mom to remain on task. Tori owed it to her baby to secure the future. Jeremy Aldrich was no solution, and confusing this actor with the sweet Sasquatch who Tori should have married would only complicate matters. Gentle, unaffected by social constraints, more than muscled, and okay with whatever it was Tori wanted, Molly's dad would learn that he had a child. What the Finn would do with that information was his decision. The original Edvin had let Tori go, and he may do the same with Molly. Tori needed to face the details that would surely come back to bite her. The original Edvin remained on his mountain, finding solace in extreme sports and perhaps many more women who'd bared their broken souls. For all Tori knew, he could have used the whole marriage proposal as the means to send women away. His intensity was both flattering and fantastic, but kinda scary. And yet Tori doubted this Edvin, this actor, would ever let the woman he loved go. He surely wouldn't abandon a child, and his hands were still on her, cradling Tori as if he sensed far more than her mental exhaustion. What now? She asked. He held her tighter and moved across rose petals. I'm tucking you in. He dropped her on the bed, and she bounced. The spring of the mattress was less a problem than springing desires. Look, I get that you're a method actor intent on perfecting your craft, but enough is enough. I'll scream if you... Scream? He laughed low. You've had enough excitement for one day. I'm sorry. What was she saying? Protesting before she was asked? This man wasn't attacking her. Her employee set a place for himself on the floor and was providing Tori with everything needed to get the divorce she didn't really need. He'd certainly helped to flush out Jeremy Aldrich. You're a great actor, and I am exhausted. More than tired, and, as you've probably guessed, at the end of my rope with a marriage that isn't real. She sank into the pillows while Edvin, the fake one, watched with a sympathetic expression that moved her even more. What are you saying? He asked. She scooted over and made room. Sit down. He waited for her to nod further assurance and then did as requested. For once. I could add playing psychiatrist to my performance, he said, if it would help. It would. Tears formed in Tori's lying eyes, and so be it. I'm the phony, the faker. Not with your Molly, Dolly, he ventured, while she hiccuped on the high side of weeping, and she didn't mind. She smiled, and so did he. I didn't plan having Molly or a pretend husband. No, never. Both just kind of happened. Jeremy Aldrich may have been another mistake, if you get my meaning. Kind of like the string of nannies who eventually ask questions I can't manage. And that Astrid, the cupcake with red hair. Tori qualified at Edvin II's blank look. She tried to keep smiling, but reality dragged down more than the corners of her mouth. Despite the irony of Tori confessing her sins to a man who made his living being anyone but himself, she wallowed in a mental cellar, disgusted at her self-deception, the heights of her pride. And realizing what a hypocrite she was, she'd fire herself if she was CEO of Yates Aldrich, and consider filing criminal charges of fraud if possible. What a faker. I shouldn't be burdening you, she said. It's obvious you're under tremendous strain. You mind? He touched her forehead with tentative fingers, performing like a trained masseuse after she'd given permission. Light swirls, strokes of that jumbo thumb, and pressure in all the right places. Method actor magic. Is there anything you're bad at? She asked, while doubting it. Lots of things, but relax. I'll stand guard outside the door if you'd like. Tori stuck him with wild eyes, then bit her lip to keep from blowing his. You'll keep doing whatever it is you learned to play a hunky health spa man. Please. I will try to, and you're welcome, he said in that gruff voice that melted her. I almost want to get blackballed, she said. The truth fell like a soft snow. Banned from Wall Street. Mocked through the whole of New York. I miss Molly like crazy whenever we're apart. Selling off other people's companies for parts doesn't give me warm fuzzies either. That's what Yates Aldrich does. Tori sank deeper against pillows and quilt. She didn't dare consider how good this Edvin might be in alleviating other aches, muscle and otherwise. The man was decidedly human, and deserved better than Tori playing with his emotions, whatever they were. His kindness to her demanded kindness in return. The fake Finn asked, What about Molly? She deserves security. There was that tone again, the same that rang with such authenticity. Tori had to wonder what scars provided this supposedly spoiled ambassador's brat the basis for genuine grief. Yes, Molly should have the best schools and a top-tier circle of friends as well. She should have the name and standing Stan gave Jeremy despite that jerk's determination to sully it. My baby deserves the life a mistake like me never had. But nothing. Molly needs her mom, and that's you, said Edvin. That's the most important. A loving mother who cares so deeply that she will sacrifice everything, even herself. Tori rubbed her eyes as if that would stem the fresh gush of tears. I imagine not having your glasses isn't helping your head. Rude of Mr. Aldrich to snatch them. Edvin looked as if he wanted to do something rude to Jeremy Aldrich. She died inside, but kept watching those luscious lips. You saw that? He nodded. Another reason for Tori to be glad she gave up going for Loveless. Her heart swelled. She liked this guy. Stupid as it was. Thank you, Blair. Thank you, Primal Instinct. A rock of a man just carried Tori up to bed to tuck her in, and she suddenly knew. Her salary could handle her having a life, a full one. Tori earned enough to ensure Molly had a future, just not the star-spangled facade that came at too high a price. Tori may have been a mistake, but she would make her own if she wasn't careful, if she refused to acknowledge the goodness staring her in the face. Tori smoothed her emerald skirt. Why did you come after me? Anna, the maid, went for a hot pot of tea to go with everything we'd set up. She told me I'd best get down there to protect you. Oh, Edvin. What's your real name? I'm so bad with them. She'd read too many resumes and too few romance novels. I'm rotten to the core. You're better than you give yourself credit for being. Now close your eyes and don't worry. His gruffness came off like a soothing balm, heating and cooling in one delicious stroke. Tomorrow will be better than you imagined. I'm imagining that you are Molly's father. I know it's weird, but you remind me so much of him, and the reasons I ran away. She touched his smooth jaw, and he kissed her. Gently, firmly, and with a lingering that made her think, too much. Being out of control scares me, she whispered against his warm mouth. Uncertainty and... You're losing control? He drew up and bathed her in a heady green gaze. No, not tonight, but maybe later, she murmured. I don't know anymore. That's okay. I'm on your payroll. Right. And me leading you on into anything that may be more about Molly's dad isn't fair to you. The real Edvin deserves closure too, and so do I. She rolled over and startled when he stroked her hair, drawing it gently down. You are so kind. You don't know me. I've been foolish and short-sighted and really mean. Tori had no desire for Molly to turn out like the entitled leech that wanted to leech off her in the kitchen, while Edvin, the fake one, was fetching her hot tea. Who did that? Shh, it's okay. I'm yours for however long you need me. Thoughts of Molly's father haunted her. I'm ending this tomorrow. Stan deserves the truth, and so does everyone else. And that feels so good. She said of her employee's skilled touch. Please don't stop. Simple pleasures are the best, he said. Another reminder as she drifted off, determined to make tomorrow the beginning of the beginning. The one Molly and she deserved. Whichever Edvin remained in the picture, Tori would leave to Santa Claus. Chapter 10. Aldrich Estate, upstate New York, after the party's over. Tori awoke. Her every muscle was suspiciously wilted as she opened her eyes in a lazy stutter of gooey mascara. Her hips and thighs lacked their typical ache, and so did her head. Pain-free, tension gone. Who'd have thought? The scent of roses filled her nostrils, and she drew in a lazy breath. Had Christmas come early? She stretched arms over her head, flexed her fingers, and reveled in the supine position that supposedly indicated true confidence. Spine flat against the mattress, legs straight, felt great. No side-lying pillow throttling for her. Not anymore. Serenity reigned, drawn over the room like a toasty blanket. Staring at the recessed ceiling, Tori still dressed in emerald green, the sequins and silk of last night. She marveled. Confession must be good for the soul. It purchased Tori a solid night's sleep, a gift that could keep on giving if she moved through Saturday in the right way. The truth had to out. Her skin prickled, and Tori redoubled her vow of last night. She'd end the farce today. She had to be honest with herself, Stan, and all her co-workers. Whether Tori recognized everyone at this team builder was irrelevant. People would think what they wanted about a single mom who fudged the truth. Tori scooted up on pillows and drew courage from the show of flower petals and pillows fallen off the bed. She chastened herself for the judgments she'd made of others. So Blair had a boyfriend and seemed distracted. Good for her. The redhead from accounting may be kind and sweet, merely concerned with Yates Aldrich's bottom line. And the client Tori had thrown Sandra's way may well have signed without the fringe benefits suggested to Tori. Everyone had their type, and Tori would be the first to admit it. If asked, or faced with a flesh-and-blood Matterhorn alpha attitude and everything she'd convinced herself she should avoid to maintain. Nothing happened last night, and yet everything had. With a sigh and another stretch, she rolled over to check the time. She didn't need sunlight streaming through the drapes to tell her she'd missed her 7 a.m. viewing of Stan's stables. The black glasses on the nightstand were unnecessary, too. Although it was odd. They were here and not. Oh no. Tori bolted to a sitting position. Edvin, are you awake? No one responded. No grunt, no words, and please God, no. Had Edvin returned to the kitchen? Yes. Her glasses being here instead of on the marble counter beside the refrigerator made that case. Had he gone Jolly Green Giant and defended his wife's honor? Tori hoped not. She scooted to the end of jumbled covers. Edvin's bed lay empty and unrumpled. Her shoulders spasmed, along with her spine. Truth was fine, and Tori vowed to stick to it. But managing its release was still her department. Impressions were still critical, if not everything. And the house had to be up. The clock on the mantel had disappeared. Her wristwatch, too. She hopped up and rooted through her purse for her smartphone. The chaise where her purse lay was too small for Edvin. Edvin the meat bus. Edvin the unthinking. Edvin the impulsive, who had how many hours to go off script? Method actors took their craft just as seriously as Tori had taken the construct of Molly's perfect life. Her phone showed it was nearly noon. Great. Whatever was happening, whatever happened, was Tori's fault. What are you doing, Edvin? What did she do? Trust? Tell the truth? Follow her instincts? Tori had done it all. Well, not everything. Yet even without crossing that line, she'd still messed things up. Jeremy Aldrich may deserve an attitude improvement, but not from Tori's fake mate. The recollection of powerful hands made her thrill and chill at the same time. Curse her quivering lip. It prickled with moisture, and far too much pleasure at the notion of her actor husband planting a fist where she may have planted her lips. If Blair's hiring this individual hadn't shown Tori exactly how exposed she was with every lie she told. Stop wasting time, she told herself. She glanced at the mirror over the fireplace and primped, despite the need for speed. A rumpled mess would only add to the image of disarray she'd been fighting so hard against. Guilty blue eyes, smudged mascara, and a mussed hairdo stared back. Fitting. And forget it. She picked up her skirt and fled into the hallway. Shoes would have to wait. Whatever the fallout, Tori would manage it. For Molly's sake, and Edvin's. Tori had insisted on a husband deserving of divorce and... Good morning. She tugged her bangs. It's afternoon, corrected the redhead. Astrid? Tori mumbled, whatever, and rethought fallout. She'd loved decking this woman, on point in a Christmas sweater that took on new meaning considering size differentials. Even the paper bag Astrid held had neat folds above its bulging contents. Whatever is right. Now that the truth about you is out, I'm surprised you didn't head up to the roof and disappear to parts unknown with your personal Santa Claus. Astrid withheld her saccharine smile, while Tori died 1,000 times. Has he got his sleigh up there? Reindeer too? Or are those up his sleeve? Like the buyout that has you sitting too pretty to be believed. Fat bonuses, my. Ho, ho, ho. What are you talking about? Asked Tori. The woman was insane. Blair, head high as she passed Astrid in the hall, inserted herself between the two women. Your husband has informed everyone about his plan for Yates Aldrich. Her tight smile screamed, go with this, but Tori's stomach couldn't comply. Tori squeaked, his plan? The buyout. Stanley Aldrich has elected the option to sell, said Blair. She rolled a shoulder at Astrid and said, excuse us. I need to speak with my boss. About Edvin? My Edvin? Tori attempted to register the crazy confirmed by Blair. Yes, your husband, said Astrid. You can't have forgotten the man. Not that I wouldn't like to. Tori took the blow and the brown paper bag Astrid pushed at her. What's this? Tori asked. Jeremy planned to be Santa Claus this morning. Waking up the lazy bones an old Aldrich tradition, explained the accountant. But he's gone thanks to you. Disappeared. Really? Said Tori in the most conciliatory tone she could manage. I'm not following. Astrid must have the biggest hangover. Either that or Edvin had lost it last night, going to the kitchen to tie one on. Jeremy disappeared? If reports were true, then something had to have happened between him and the actor. Blair's acceptance of the story must be a cover until they could compare updates. Tori said, let's chat later, Astrid. Yes, that's the name. And no, we won't be chatting, Miss Finn. Or should I say, Mrs. Alexson. Alexson? Tori mulled the name associated with the moneyed of the moneyed, the moon's moon, an elite level Tori would never reach. Linked with war, peace, and what the next in color would be for 20 years plus. Alexson was out of Tori's league, and certainly not someone she could control. Nobody could, from all accounts. The family blew off the Bilderberg group as if they were overly attached girlfriends. Come off it. You snagged Arn Edvin Alexson, Tori. The hideaway honey with all that glorious power and enough gold bullion to choke Midas and make him say thank you. So naturally, you had to keep everyone out of the loop. Brilliant using a pseudonym like Edvin Finn. Not. Whatever you're smoking, you can stop it right now. Too far was too far, and Edvin the actor was out of control. You are rich, steamrolling Stan, Jeremy, me, and every other Yates Aldrich employee except for Blair. Your little go-to girl. Astrid yanked the hem of her strained sweater. No wonder she got such fat bonuses. Traitor. Says the ho-ho-ho, Blair countered with a snarl. Let it go, Blair. Let it go. Tori roped her PA into her suite and slammed the door. Now tell me what is going on. You've been acting weird. So, I want to know about that too. All right, Blair said after a halting pause, but you'd better sit down. Lie down, maybe. The fragrant hay, gleaming tack, and hand-painted signs were still in place inside Stan Aldrich's fantasy stable. Everything appeared the same to Edvin, except for swags of holly and ivy, red velvet bows, and sprigs of mistletoe above each stall. Whinnies and snorts lingered in the cold air. The horses left behind seemed indignant that they'd failed to rate. Like those managers at Yates Aldrich. Managers who suspected Edvin would cut them after his breaking the news of the Olexon buyout. I'm sorry, said Stan. Winner's purse is yours, no doubt. The paperwork is there. Edvin swiped his palm across his face. The horse is not, though, and I'm sorry too. Truly. The only stall that concerned the two men lay empty, except for a note telling Edvin he wasn't getting everything. Jeremy won't harm her, said Stan. He had better not. That horse is Molly's. Edvin imagined Christmas morning, complete with mother and father, and a celebration of the sweet child he may have missed, because of his own stubbornness. The aspersions he set at Victoria's feet 4 years ago belonged to him. Edvin's hiding from life, ignoring needs, and pursuing some selfish idea of personal freedom at the expense of others are mistakes he'd correct. Thank you for selling her to me, Edvin said of the horse. That can't have been easy. It was easy enough to sell me, though, came a voice chillier than the biting air. Edvin turned, unprepared. Victoria? Tori, she emphasized. Garbed in green, an outrageous hooded pink parka, and wearing mud boots, the mother of his child stared icicles at him. Gone was the sweet simplicity of last night. Were you plotting to buy and sell more unsuspecting people and properties before the end of the business quarter? Merry Christmas to you two, and a lump of coal for everyone else, she said. I had to sell, Tori. Family demands being what they are. A partnership was out of the question. Jeremy is not what you think he is. The old man hung his head. Well, maybe he is and more. He spent nearly everything. Not everything, though. You still have the Aldrich name. The spirit. She touched Stan's shoulder. Jeremy is your grandson. I meant what I said last night. He's had such a hard time, Stan said with a twist of his head. And you'll be there for him. Your flesh and blood. A family that thrives on challenge, not money. She drew in a huge breath, as if she'd never tasted air or recognized what made her so unique. But you. She turned on Edvin with a dangerous exhale. We'll give you the room. Stan instructed his stableman to wheel him out. Edvin nodded thanks while Tori paced. She must have borrowed the boots. They were so big. So was the chasm separating him from the woman he thought he could win. Or fool. He'd fooled himself, he knew, watching her weigh words and reactions. His attempt to discover more about Victoria revealed more about him. His prejudices and short-sightedness about what he needed were only the beginning. The prospect of saving Victoria was an attempt to save himself, then and now. Tori. Edvin rubbed his neck where he lingered beside the empty stall. Stan asked me to make the buy. It's a legitimate idea since I've taken my place at Olexon Group. Your rightful place? I've wasted enough time relying on others, belittling their motives and decisions while indulging myself. Escape came in many forms. Isn't that what you prefer? A man of action and security? Security is what Tori needed, and Edvin had been too blind to see it. He'd been too wrapped up in Victoria leaving him. Edvin Arndt Olexon, without a yes to his marriage proposal, as if she should yield just because he wanted her to. When she nipped her lower lip, his heart stopped. "Tell me, please." He swallowed regret. "What do you need?" "I can't bear the silence." "Neither can I. But my preferences are none of your business. No personal questions allowed," she said at last. Her breath frosted between them. "Although you could have been a true angel investor, not a vulture." They both stood beneath the mistletoe now, so close and yet. He reached for her, and she lurched away. "That's not it," he said. "I'm no vulture and—" "Please don't. It doesn't matter whether you break up Yates Aldrich. I quit. And keep the separation package." She stepped toward him, and his lungs seized. "Cash outs, contracting rollovers. It's not worth the slow death of me sticking around until you decide to pull the plug, because New York is beneath you. Blair told me everything." "She can't tell you what's piercing my heart." "An icicle, you mean," she laughed. "I'm sorry for you. Think of Molly. She needs her father. That part of herself I will know and understand. What I need to understand," he argued. The truth came too late, judging by the curl of Victoria's lower lip. Glittering blue eyes narrowed, consigning him to the deepest pit of the darkest places, sought him out beneath her winged brows. He almost wished she were wearing those clunky black glasses. "Here." She tore a mass of white from her pocket. "Put this on. Your mention of my baby doesn't deserve a response." "A beard?" She flicked out the curls and set them against his jaw. "Yeah, that's better. You need something of what you've lost." "What have I lost? Tell me." "His child? His chance with Victoria?" "Victoria. Tori. May fight him on both counts, and then what? A battle is not what she deserved." "Say the words, Tori. Tell me what's in your heart." His heart ached. "Don't leave me hanging this time." "You've lost yourself, okay? You, the man I fell in love with." A wash of tears spilled over her smudged lashes. "You aren't the high mountain hermit I thought I knew. But maybe if you remember, you'll get him back. That man is Molly's Issa. Her daddy, not you." "Tori." "No." Her mouth contorted, lips trembling. "The gentle giant who forced me to see would help Stan and Jeremy. Even the actor I couldn't believe was that good. He'd help others up the mountain, challenge them, not rush in with a pile of cash that only equals the end." Tori choked on emotion so obviously painful it wounded Edvin all over again. He grasped her shoulders, the beard falling to the ground, but she shook her head. "I don't want Arne Alexson for my baby. I can't," she said. When she ripped away, Edvin let her go. Against the desire of his heart, he let her go. The man he had become is not who she wanted. Chapter 11. Christmas Day. Christmas morning came early, complete with butterfly kisses on the inside of Tori's stomach. Her heart squeezed and took a tumble against her ribs, where she hugged her pillow. Soft enough, but completely unresponsive, and with no arms to return the favor despite Tori's pleading look. But Molly was up and active, judging by an approaching thump-thump. Pleasure tugged up the corners of Tori's dry mouth. Motherhood was pure joy, but still demanding. More so than ever. But Christmas Day should be special. Reserved for smiles and happy thoughts, not the growing sense that this might be Tori's last Christmas with her baby. If only she could follow Molly's lead, venting tension with a squeal and a jump. But then Tori knew Santa had come, no question. Santa had gone, too, driven away by Tori's fears. Their baby, deprived of the father she deserved to know, danced into the bedroom. Mussed curls, red-checked Christmas dress tugged on over fleecy pajama pants. Molly sang a gleeful Holly Jolly Christmas. Her imperfect wording was absolutely perfect, and deserving of praise. Tori rubbed her crinkled forehead and forced a smile Molly would see through one day. Meanwhile, Tori's twisted Holly Jolly husband lyrics joined the chorus in her head. Pride and presumption sang back up. Edvin's Loki comparisons were well-deserved. Despite Tori's lack of magical attributes, she had wounded Molly's father. Deeply, and far more than she had previously allowed herself to imagine. Edvin was wholly justified in being angry, and even vengeful at Tori's depriving him of the precious bundle scooting close to the bed. Tori merited his scorn, a storm of rage, and yet she'd received none from Edvin Arnolfsson, not even from the actor who had brought her to the most honest performance of her life, admitting weakness and wanting, while he suffered the pretense of Tori wanting to rid herself of him, again. The prevailing silence since Tori left the Aldrich estate pealed louder than any Christmas bells. So did Tori's truth. She wanted Edvin. Both of them. Both sides of the same mountain man she'd fallen in love with. Too quickly, maybe, but she understood that a bottom-line player with buyouts on his brain was not in Edvin's nature. Something changed him. Someone. Molly had 2 sharks in her life thanks to Tori, and 1 hypocrite mom who had no right to set terms for anyone. Christmas, 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 Molly spun, her chubby hands weaving up and down. Mommy up. Come here, you, said Tori. Molly stopped dancing and shook her head, tangled curls brushing her chubby cheeks. Mommy up. In a minute, Tori said. Who wants a snuggle? Mommy up. It's Christmas. Molly scowled, looking too much like her father. Okay, Mommy up. Tori pushed away the pillow she'd strangled and threw off the bed covers. Mommy should have insisted that Nanny stay through the morning. Molly smiled. Daddy stay? What? Tori asked. Nanny was forever posing questions, and Molly picked up every one of them. Daddy stay, Molly repeated with a sudden seriousness. Brows furrowed. She rushed to the closet Tori never touched and slid open the door. Daddy stay with Molly. Molly dove into the closet. The motion sensor pinged on the closet lights, and empty suits, ties, designer shoes, and dangling sleek leather belts were spotlighted. So was Molly's need, something Tori had never witnessed. Not like this. Tugs, touches, and a worship of sorts took center stage as her baby gripped the ends of silk and leather and brought them close to her lips. Tori blinked against a suffocating avalanche of shame. Molly kissed Daddy, the baby cried. Had Nanny taught Molly to do this? Watched Molly with the same heart squeeze and head shake that made Tori wish she'd demanded Edvin come home with her? And not just at their last encounter in Stan Aldrich's stable. Regret and longing closed in, cold and stifling, yet her insides melted. Tori had thought to protect Molly, yes, but mostly herself. Vulnerability isn't a look she preferred, but Tori wore it. Wanting shook her to the core. Her lips thinned against a sob, her brows gathered with agonizing precision, and every hint of color had to be draining from her face. Tori had blown the best deal of her life sky high. She'd ruined a good man, a family man, her family, and her man. Had she been wise enough to take him? But Molly needed her father, now. A Christmas call was top of the morning's list. Difficult, but necessary, no matter what may come. Mommy's getting up, and you should get out of there, Molly. Come on. Tori jumped up from bed, stuffed her feet in her pink house slippers, and pulled her bangs to one side so she could see more clearly. Let's see what Santa brought you, and we'll talk. Molly talked to Daddy? Yes, said Tori, over the wad of guilt she'd never choked down. Thankfully, the team of lawyers she'd expected to steamroll her hadn't appeared yet, and Edvin was not the abominable snowman, just a man. He could sue Tori for full custody, and would likely score points with any judge considering how Tori had treated him. Molly's father could buy and sell judges the world over. Loving Molly wasn't an excuse for Tori keeping a baby hidden from a loving parent, and Tori was doing it again, thinking only of herself and not Molly. "Daddy, stay," said Molly. "Yes, Molly, Daddy will be staying. Just not with Mommy," Tori added, her spirits sliding like so many silk ties spilling onto the closet floor. Who needs a Christmas hug? She opened her arms and crouched to receive the rocket that was her daughter when the doorbell rang. Molly squealed. "Daddy?" "UPS elves," corrected Tori. She hoped. 30 pounds never felt so light, and Tori missed her daughter already, despite trying to think positively. Tori said, "Santa sometimes needs help to deliver all those presents." Some items Tori ordered hadn't arrived, and she was grateful for the distraction. She padded into the living room, past the twinkling Christmas tree, sheltering endless presents, with Molly wriggling all the way. When the two reached the entry, the doorbell rang again. "Daddy, Daddy," said Molly with a bounce. Great. Molly's penchant for singular focus was already showing. "Let's see what else Santa has brought for you," said Tori to get her mind off having to call Edvin. If Santa was real, he'd have mercy and give Tori one more day without worrying over the inevitable. Shared custody? Lost custody? She hated having turned Edvin into a hard copy of herself. Tears seared Tori's eyes, and she said, "You've been such a good girl, Molly." "She has," chuckled Santa when Tori swung open the door. Her lungs seized. There was no mistaking the mass of red velvet filling doorframe. Tori's teeth ached as she steadied herself, clenching everything. Green eyes searched her like some Saint Bernard on a rescue mission. But Tori did not deserve any reprieve. She did not deserve the hulking hero who could have saved her from herself and too many years of doing what her conscience said was wrong. Putting money and power above true love and all hope of genuine family bonds was what led Jeremy Aldrich to betray his grandfather and the generations that came before him. "So, what's this?" asked Tori. "The end? Edvin's attempt to win Molly over and ease the blow of separation from her mother?" Tori squeezed her baby and stiffened her lip. Tori braced herself. "Don't leave me hanging, Santa. Say something." "Well, Victoria, this is Santa making a special delivery. A very special delivery," he said, with that smooth, buttery tone that set her toes on fire. "Seriously? You're delivering? Not picking up?" She sounded like a mouse. "I try to be. Very serious," he answered. Tori attempted to look over his shoulders for any backup. Police, social services, personal goons. "You called me Lohi, remember? That woodland witch. Not the most flattering comparison, even if I've earned it." The hallway was empty, what little she glimpsed of it. "Relax. You and Molly have both been very good. Too good, maybe. You're not angry?" "How could I be? You've done a marvelous job with our daughter, taking care of her in my absence. You've sacrificed so much, Victoria. It's hard for Santa to pick the right gifts." Edvin leaned forward and chucked Molly's chin. A miniature of his minus the glossy white beard he wore. "You both deserve something special. A sleek and spirited pony for Molly." "Winner's purse?" Tori asked while Molly hovered halfway between enthralled and terrified. She squeezed Tori's nightgown as if it were a safety harness, and Tori would be that. No matter what happened, whatever the challenge. The red velvet mountain with ermine trim and glittery tears cresting high cheekbones was surely that. What was he hiding in the brown leather sack slung over his massive shoulder? "May I come in?" he asked. Edvin's gentle giant side was on full display, and Tori delighted in the shivers skipping across her skin. "That depends." Tori wasn't angry, but needed to know. "How have you treated others on your list? The good ones. The bad ones. Any lumps of coal in that sack?" She had earned the biggest one, despite what Edvin said. Tears fell from Tori's blinking blue eyes when Molly breathed, "Daddy." "That's right. I'm your Issa, Molly. Your daddy," he said in the shakiest, smallest voice Tori had ever heard. "Merry Christmas. And the same to your beautiful Aiti." "Mommy," Molly translated with proud kick of legs. Yes, yes, that means Mommy. Edvin choked, and so did Tori. She sniffled and said, I've tried to teach her. You're good at that. Teaching. Very good. Stan Aldrich is getting a new partner. Santa nipped his lower lip. A true angel investor, as you suggested, not a buyout. Nobody is losing his job, and there will be plenty of challenge for everyone. Even Astrid? Asked Tori. Edvin's blank look made her smile. The redhead accountant. I'm not sure of everyone's name yet, but nobody is being let go. Tori blushed beneath his deep green focus. What about the hills? Edvin touched Molly's hand and stroked her pudgy knuckles with a massive thumb. A great couple from my company, according to Stan. Phineas is hopping on this new venture, and a few of those you didn't recognize last weekend, too. Not that they know me. I've been a mystery even to myself. Oh, thank you, Edvin. I mean, Arn, what do you prefer? Whatever you'd like. I hope you'll be part of driving Aldrich Ollickson to the highest peaks, Tori, he said with emphasis. That's Victoria to you. I prefer it. She shuddered with relief. Wanting. And endless other lovelies impossible to contain in any bag. And yes, that's exactly what I wanted this year. But I have other things on my list before you come in. He took forever, then sighed, such as, bring any mistletoe? Oh yes, I wouldn't leave the Northland without it, he said to a wide-eyed Molly, when he pulled a sprig from his bag and raised it over his head. Tori kissed him with every ounce of longing she'd denied herself. Her heart beat out of her chest, and so what? Their baby smiled, and that's what mattered most. Daddy, stay, squealed Molly, and Tori took her cue, latching a hand onto Santa's black belt and pulling him inside. Yes, Molly, Daddy, stay. Tori filled his arms with their child. Kissing Santa Claus is not just for Christmas, but she did it again anyway, knowing this would be the best Christmas ever. This has been Kissing Santa Claus, Clean Billionaire Christmas, 2-hour short reads romance, written by Anne Malley, narrated by Nikki Franklin. Copyright 2021 by Anne Malley. Production copyright by Anne Malley.